honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Well, good morning, America. This is America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this hour. Thank you for joining us this bright and early morning on Saturday. This is our Saturday edition of America's Voice Now. We had a kind of an interesting day yesterday out at Morningland Dairy. For those of you who were listening live, it appears we have had a very interesting morning. We are going to spend some time this morning with the Dixon family. Joe Dixon and his wife Denise are the owners of Morningland Dairy. They will be joining us later on this morning about, I believe, 7 o'clock or thereabouts to have a frank and candid discussion about what transpired there yesterday, what's been going on with them over the past 2 or 3 years in relation to this entire issue, and to kind of bring you folks up to speed on exactly what happened yesterday and where this matter goes from onward. So I'm not gonna drag the thing out and speak about it earlier. I'll wait for them to arrive and talk with us. They're going to be live in studio, and as you folks know, we stream the show live. And so, if you'd like to, you're welcome to visit us at americasvoicenow.org. and capture the show live on streaming. You simply scroll down a little bit, and on the right-hand side, there's a big button there that you can't miss unless you're Helen Keller. It says AVN, hosted by Mike Evans, watch live. You click that, pops open a window on your browser, and enables you to see the show live. I want to talk about a couple of news issues that are out there this morning that we really haven't had an opportunity to kind of cover yesterday, and yesterday and the day before, we spent a lot of time working on the Morningland Dairy issues, and the issues here, of course, are some very important news items. Number one, if you didn't hear it, the court has declared that Obama's recess appointments to the National Labor Relations Board, where he appointed 3 board members and 1 other member to another board about a year ago, he declared that Congress was out of session because they'd gone home for the weekend, and because he wasn't getting his way, like a petulant, pouting child, he simply appointed 4 individuals to various positions. Well, the court has come back and said, not so fast, Mr. President. That was an abuse of power. Now, I'm glad to hear the court use those words. They're not mine. The court uses those words, abuse of power, because it's gratifying to those of us who have been recognizing exactly how we're headed and what direction we're moving here with this administration to hear the court recognize that this president is out of control. And so to hear them use the abuse of power phrase is gratifying indeed. I think it also helps to make the citizens or the voters of America recognize that there is more to this. Everybody who's talking about this man becoming dictatorial in his approach to things is not wearing a tinfoil hat. I mean, I hear all the time, that's a conspiracy theory, he's really not out to do all that to us. Well, I beg to differ. The court just told you he is. An abuse of power is a dictatorial move by a president. Now, this is only one example of, and one that's actually been proven in court. Unfortunately, it took us a year and a half or so to get to this point, but the simple truth is, when you hear a court come back and say that a president has abused his authority, that is a rather harsh statement. In fact, it's interesting because the White House tried to cover for this. Press Secretary Jay Carney, who I I have to tell you, I listened to Jay Carney talk, and I want to take a shower to wipe the snake oil off of me after I finish hearing this man. He is an unabashed and unashamed mouthpiece for this administration, and I don't know how he lies with a straight face so well. I mean, really, he truly does. He came out and said that the administration strongly disagrees with the decision, and that the Labor Board would continue to conduct business as usual, despite calls by some Republicans for the board members to resign. So here you've got a president who not only hears that the court declares he's abused his authority, but turns around and says, I don't really care what you think. I'm going to do what I want anyway. According to Jay Carney, the decision is novel and unprecedented, and it contradicts 150 years of practice by Democrat and Republican administrations. That's a lie. That's a lie. You know, well, I'll let a constitutional professor express the response to that. I think this is a very important decision about the separation of powers, said Carl Tobias, a constitutional law professor at Virginia University in Richmond. The court's reading has limited the president's ability to counter the obstruction of appointments by a minority in the Senate that has been pretty egregious in the Obama administration. So here's the bottom line, folks. The president has abused his power, abused his authority. The courts have recognized it, and now we have an opportunity to set a foundation by which we can look at other decisions that this president makes and has made to evaluate as to whether or not we believe that those are also in violation. All right. If you want to learn more about that, just simply type in abuse of power, Obama abuse of power, and you'll find something on the web about it. I mean, all of the news outlets, even the liberal news outlets, are talking about it. And they have to, because it's a judicial decision and they can't avoid it. There is also another story out here that if this, folks, is not indicative of what's going on in this administration, in our nation, and I tell you what, you're asleep at the wheel. The American Communist Party, and of course there is one, is cheering Obama's gun grab. It should come as no surprise that the Communist Party in the USA is on board with President Obama's plan to attack Americans' rights to keep and bear arms. I mean, in a January 18th article in People's World, that's the official publication of the Communist Party, declared that, quote, the ability to live free from the fear of or threat of gun violence is a fundamental democratic right, one that far supersedes any so-called personal gun rights allegedly contained in the Second Amendment. Allegedly? Allegedly? I tell you what, when you hear stuff like that, I mean, how do you sit there and say allegedly contained in the Constitution? I'm not even sure that I can justify an argument with words because it's so frustrating. So I'm not going to beat the thing to death. Needless to say, the Communist Party is in full compliance with everything Obama does because everything that he does is a suitable fit for the Communist Party plank. So, and by the way, if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what you're waiting to hear. That should be giving you all the alert signs you need. Rahm Emanuel has said to bankers that they should stop supporting gun makers. And if you're not aware of it, Bank of America has said they will not allow you to use your Bank of America credit card to buy firearms and or ammunition. Really? Mr. Emanuel, I think that should mean that you are named in a class action suit by every gun manufacturer and every manufacturer of accessories and anything that would be labeled under the ban, including ammunition.
You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Dirty Harry gets all his ammo from the battery station. John Rambo, you guessed it. He gets his ammo from the battery station, too. So if you need ammo, go to the place where the guys who know about ammunition go, the battery station. They have one of the largest supplies of ammunition in the area. So make sure you're stocked up and don't get low on shells. Go to the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains.
Come on in. The new models have arrived here at Sleep Mart in West Plains and Mountain Home. Plus 4 years of financing on selected mattress sets. And don't forget bunk beds, $198 plus a free bed tent with purchase. And don't forget, of course, they're your home for the Tempur-Pedic and the Serta Eye Comfort sleep systems. Take advantage of their free layaway as well. That's Sleep Mart, name brand furniture at discounted prices in West Plains and Mountain Home.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Sorry, guys, I cut myself off there. Emmanuel to banks, stop supporting gun makers. The Bank of America has declared that they will not allow you to use your credit card to purchase guns and or ammunition or accessories. I believe this is a classic case, and I think federal attorneys would agree, that this is a perfect opportunity for gun manufacturers, whether they be firearms or whether they be accessories and or ammunition or anything related to the gun industry that would fall up underneath this ban, and anything that wouldn't fall up underneath the ban, because he's encouraging credit card companies and banks to put pressure on gun makers to get behind his push for an assault weapon ban and criminal background checks for gun purchases. Well, let me tell you something, folks. And I want to address this criminal background check thing for a minute here, because that also is restraint of trade. Who the hell is the government to tell you that you have to get a background check to purchase a firearm from another individual? In fact, from an FFL as well. But more importantly, they're trying to now restrict your ability to say to your neighbor, hey, you know what? I kind of like that shotgun you got sitting there in the corner, and if you don't mind, I'd like to buy that from you so I can go out and do a little dove hunting. Or or it's the perfect size for my wife, and I would really like to have that as a home defense gun. Who the hell is this government to say that your neighbor Charlie has to go down to a gun store and you have to go with him and fill out a 4473 form to get a background check so that they can make sure that you are capable of owning a gun? I'm insulted. You should be too. The vast majority of any of the firearms that are used in these mass shootings, as these alleged mass shootings, are purchased legally. They're not bought at gun shows, so I'm tired of hearing the gun show loophole. That's a lie perpetrated by the Democratic Party and the progressives in the anti-gun industry to make you think that Clem, who buys a gun from Jed at a gun show, are two dangerous individuals that don't have the right to have open commerce without oversight or overreach by the government digging into their underwear to take a look. It's none of their damn business. You don't need a background check to go out there and get a shotgun for your kid to teach him how to go shoot and hunt, or to get your son or your daughter a small rifle to go out there and learn how to hunt, or learn how to defend their home, or learn how to defend themselves, or learn the facts about a government descending into tyranny on a day in and day out basis. Rahm Emanuel has left himself wide open to a class action lawsuit by every manufacturer of anything gun-related on a personal and professional governmental level. Because what he suggested is a a restraint of trade. What he's saying is that these banks should get together and collectively, in a smoke-filled room, make a decision that they are going to try to put the gun business out of business without legislative right. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a trust violation, antitrust law. If Exxon and Shell Oil get together in a smoky room and say, listen, we're going to put the price at $4 a gallon and you should too, that's an antitrust violation. If Rahm Emanuel gets together with a bunch of banks in his boardroom and says, we want you guys to help us put gun makers out of business, that's restraint of trade and antitrust. That's violating federal law. That's violating capitalistic principles. That's breaking into the free enterprise market and robbing it. Rahm Emanuel, you are a little pipsqueak you are a small pipsqueak with a small man's complex. And I have to tell you, I for one am sick of it, and I am sick of you. You little megalomaniac, I just make me ill. Every time I see your face, I want to vomit. TD Bank offers a $60 million line of credit to Smith & Wesson, and he wants them to yank that line of credit. Restraint of trade, antitrust. Here's what he says. By the way, Bank of America has a line of credit for Ruger. $25 million line of credit. He's trying to tell them, pull that line of credit. Shut them off. Shut off their flow of money so they're out of business. He urged the Bank of America and Brian T. Moynihan and Bharat Masrani, the CEO of TD Bank, collectively, we can send a clear and unambiguous message to the entire gun industry that investors will no longer financially support companies that support gun violence. Oh, really? I tell you, people, these are public statements by public individuals. That alone, that statement in and of itself, is enough to win an antitrust lawsuit. Hey, gun makers, what are you waiting for? Gun manufacturers, what are you waiting for? Where is some attorney, some federal attorney with some brass in his pants to go out and collectively contact them and say, you know what? I'm going to be the lead dog on this sled. We're going to go bury this guy and put him where he belongs. Behind bars. Well, I don't know if we could really win such a lawsuit. I got to think about that. Oy vey. Whatever. All right. Battery station open 6 days a week now. That means today. They never used to be open on Saturdays, but they're open now. They do have ammunition. You can find them at 303 Washington Avenue. 257-7799 is their phone number. And the address is 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains. You can also find them on the web at batterystation.com. They have ammunition. They have all kinds of knapsacks, backpacks, camping gear, self-reliance gear, survival gear, pretty much anything you could want. Not to mention any battery, I think, ever made by man. And maybe a couple not made by man. I don't know. They have so much product in that little store, guys. You walk in there and you're just overwhelmed. It takes you about 15 minutes in the front of the store just to kind of catch up and understand what you're looking at, because there's so much stuff in there, you won't even know where to start. Anyway, get down to see them. They're at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains. BatteryStation.com on the web. Telephone number 417-257-7799. Bill Stone over at Stone Construction. Been in the construction business for 40 years, does remodels, custom and new work, light commercial. Man, these guys do everything. They've done local projects. Just as a reference, Faith Assembly South Edition, the 11-Point Equine Center. They did the restoration of the Big Yellow House in West Plains. They've done a ton of residential homes and developments here and duplexes here in town. Mastercraft's office renovation. They've got all kinds of services that they offer, including one where allows you to, it's kind of like a construction management role, where he actually does the construction management and allows you to kind of GC your own project, which saves you a ton of money. You go out, you hire your own guy, your plumber, your concrete guy, your mason, your plumber, and so forth and so on. And he shows you how to do that so that you can actually be a general contractor yourself and save a lot of money. They do pole barns, shops, decks, concrete work, structural work. I mean, there's nothing pretty much in the construction business that they can't do. Whether it's for your farm or your home or your commercial enterprise or business, Bill Stone is the guy to call. You can find him at 293-0116. That's 293-0116. He's a supporter of our program, by the way, and he's a true patriotic American. I mean, this is a guy who has his heart and his mind and his spirit and his soul in the right place. So I encourage you to do business with him if you are considering anything along the lines of any kind of construction or repair work. Chantilly's Artisan Bakery and my friend Mary, who has the best damn bakery in 100 miles, is over on number 2 Evans Arcade. That is right off the square in West Plains. You can reach her at 255-2253. That's 255-2253. She does do special orders and things like that. So if you're interested in setting up some kind of a party or you've got some kind of an event happening, make sure you give her a call and find out what she can do that would be unique and special for you to make your event different. Again, it's Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, 255-2253. We're going to take a break. Again, I want to remind you that we are going to have Joe Dixon, and I believe, I'm not positive about Denise, but Joe is going to be here this morning, and he's going to join us to give us an update on what transpired yesterday at Morningland Dairy and some of the background of it so that you all understand exactly how out of control our Nazi fascist milk board is in this state. Okay? By the way, they operate under the USDA and the U.S. Department of, the FDA. And so this will give you a perfect example. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Some people from Newtown, Connecticut, site of a deadly school shooting, are joining a gun control march in Washington.
It will start near the Capitol and continue to the Washington Monument. Among the marchers, some celebrities, including actress Kathleen Turner. They're trying to build pressure on Congress to pass tougher gun laws. Gun rights supporters, though, say the measures so far would not save lives but would violate constitutional rights.
Fox Radio's Mike Makowitz in Washington. The Obama administration may give $32 million to help train African troops to fight Islamic extremists in Mali. And a sad ending for the dolphin that somehow ended up in the Gowanus Canal in New York.
The marine mammal appeared to be struggling, its eye and snout occasionally peeking out of the water. But by nightfall, the animal's struggle for survival was just too much, passing away.
Joe Waldman of WNYW. Fox News. We report, you decide.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
Obama is now uniting more and more of us with his latest power grab and his propaganda. He's trying to provoke us, and he has. So I just want to say that he picked this battle, not with the Republicans, not with Congress, but with us, the people. Second Amendment is not about Congress, and it's not about the Republicans. It's about individual liberty vis-a-vis the federal government.
Mark Levin is on the radio.
Weeknights from 5 till 8, Mark Levin on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
Weather is a service of News Talk 107.1 The Point. Contact Josh or Cody at 255-2548 for more information on making weather sponsorships part of your marketing plans.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, we have mostly sunny skies, high near 49 degrees. And then tonight, good chance of showers after midnight, a low around 30 on Sunday. Very good chance of showers, cloudy skies, high near 48 degrees. I'm Dawn James, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Do you want to challenge yourself in 2013? Have you ever thought about running a marathon but have never earned the courage to do so? Do you love supporting West Plains High School? You can do all three on February 16th. The Heart of the Ozarks Half Marathon and 10K will take place in West Plains. Chip timing will be used for fast, accurate results, post-race massages, first aid, and refreshment stages along the way. All will be provided by caring and supporting volunteers. If you're interested in signing up as a runner or a volunteer, call 417-293-3554 or stop by Flow Fitness for more details.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
That groove. Absolutely. You know, this music was written for me by a kid in Romania. That's the truth. Yeah, talented young fella. I just love that groove. It's great. I know it's not Merle Haggard, but I like it. And this is my show, and I'm a little dictator here, so hey, I can play it if I want. Hey, I'd like you guys to visit another one of our vendors who is a big supporter of ours, and they have a great location down in Mountain Home, Arkansas, the Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. You can find them on the internet at Ozark MTN, the abbreviation for Mountain, selfreliance.com. They're on 3225 Highway 62, 1/2 mile east of Walmart in Mountain Home. Now, Brian is a friend of ours and a major supporter of our program, but he also has a great lineup of supplies that run the gamut of self-reliant things like water filtration systems. He's got freeze-dried food down there. He has camping gear. He's got self-reliant gear. He's got survival gear. He's got pretty much anything that you could need that would enable you to be a self-reliant American. And that's what this show is all about, right? We need to recognize that things are out of control on state and federal sides, and we need to be able to be prepared to take care of ourselves and our families. So find those folks at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. You can call Brian at 870-492-4030. That's 870-492-4030. And again, you can find them on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. Do yourself a favor and give him a call or go down and visit his location. By the way, when you guys go to see our vendors who support us, make sure that you tell them that I heard your ad on America's Voice with Mike, because it helps them recognize exactly, where their revenue is going and how their advertising works. And we want to make sure that their advertising with us is successful. So from an advertising perspective, a lot of you guys know I run a marketing and internet development company. That's how I actually make a living, because I'm sure, this is a volunteer operation here. But an advertiser needs to know how his money is being spent and whether or not it's being spent wisely. And so by going down there and saying to them, hey, Mike from America's Voice sent me down here, or I heard your ad on America's Voice now, it gives them the knowledge that they need in order to either put more advertising money behind it or less. So let them know that you are a supporter of America's Voice now, too, and that you are coming down there to spend some time, money, effort, energy with them because you heard about it By the way, I'm going to read you guys a kind of a cool email I got the other day. There's a fellow who is a friend of mine. He has a business where he teaches folks how to fly helicopters. And he's got a website called Fly with Orv, O-R-V, like Orville Wright, flywithorv.com. Orville is his name. So he's instructing some folks out in Massachusetts, and there are pilots out there. And they told him that they listen to this show regularly all the way out in Massachusetts. And he says, I just thought you would enjoy hearing that. I'm instructing in Massachusetts, and the pilots here tell me that they listen to you regularly all the way out here. Just thought you would enjoy hearing that. So, and of course, he signs his name. Well, I know Orv, he's a buddy of mine, and I sent him an email back. I said, wow, how cool is that? Just got to ask, are they getting it on the web, or is this Radio Skip? Because, Radio Skip, guys, is, got some limitations, right? For them to hear us out in Connecticut all the way from here is pretty interesting. So I said, tell them I'm appreciative of their support and listenership. I'm pumped. So he sent back another email. He says, I thought you would be. They pick it up at times on the radio, and that's how they actually found out about you. Now they listen on YouTube in the evenings if they missed the live stream. Cold here today. Can't wait to get back to warm Missouri. Keep up the great work. We appreciate all you do. So I just thought you guys would get as much of a kick out of it. Well, maybe you won't get as much of a kick out of it as I do. But, hey, guys out there, thanks to our friends out in Massachusetts. You pilots are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. I appreciate you. Love you guys. Thank you very much for your support and your listenership. And keep spreading the word out there about America's Voice Now. Because, listen, we'd love to have a national audience, right? I think that, we could actually make some changes in our nation if we could get the kind of truth that we tell out there every single day. What's the difference between what we say and what you hear from the Sean Hannitys of the world and the Mark Levins of the world? Although I have to admit I admire Mark very, very much. But we're telling you things and we're talking about things that no other radio station or talk show host, quite honestly, is talking about. We break news on stuff that they don't even want to get into. They're afraid to talk about some of this stuff because they've got sponsors they've got to make happy, and listen, there's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, I've had a lot of people say to me, oh my God, why aren't you syndicated? You should be on you should be out there with Limbaugh or those guys. Well, I would love to be, but you got to be careful. That's a double-edged sword, When you've got a sponsor out there who turns around and says, "Hey, wait a minute, I don't like the way you portrayed that situation," or I don't want to be beholden to that. So, in the event, God willing, that I were ever to be able to syndicate this show, I have to tell you, the first thing I would have to say to every advertiser is, but you got to take it the way I hand it out, because I'm not going to change the message. And there's just no way around that, folks. I mean, the point of this show is to be a Paul Revere, alert and warning for America. So we give you the news the mainstream media won't, and we're never going to change that. We really don't want to make we really don't want to make a change in that regard, because that's what makes you want to come back here and listen to this thing in the morning, or in the afternoon, or the evening, or Saturday. That's what makes you folks show up at events like Morningland Dairy, so that you have the knowledge that what you're hearing is truth, and what you're hearing is truth that everyone else is hiding from you. That's what's really important. Truth is only truth if it's revealed to you. If you don't know about it, I mean, it may be truth, but you can't miss what you ain't had. Right? You can't say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not aware that it's even out there, and therefore I miss it, because you don't know it's out there. Our goal is to make sure that we're talking to you about the things that matter on a routine basis. We're talking about the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. And yes, I take a hard line. No denying it. I'll never change that position, because I don't really care whether politicians are my friend or not. I don't really care whether or not this administration likes me or respects me or otherwise. My job is not to pander to them. My job is to make sure that you have an opportunity to know what's going on around you and what's being done to you. That's right. You heard the phrase right. What's being done to you. Not for you, to you. Believe me, you live under a cloud of manipulation by every other media source on the planet. I'm going to be the breath of fresh air in your world. So, continue to join us. Watch us on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on our website. Visit those 3 locations. Tell your friends. Spread the word. Make sure that you're doing your part to help drive our effort to get more listeners to wake up. All right. UK leads in triple-digit dip as the GDP contracts 0.3%. The UK economy has just entered a triple-digit recession. Triple-dip recession, not digit, I apologize. Triple-dip recession. So what that means is that they've had a recession, they came out of it, they went back into it, they came out of it, and they're back into it again. Oh my goodness. People, if you wonder why the world is basically at zero growth, it's because the bankers of the world are manipulating you and all of these economic principles that govern industry across the planet. And they have so much money floated out there that the slightest step or move that they make impacts trillions of dollars. I mean, it's a staggering thought that these people can be out there making manipulations of the currency systems, making manipulations of gross domestic product and production, and one little step affects millions and millions of lives, billions and or even trillions of dollars. You wonder how they're manipulating and why they're, how that operates. I can tell you this, that when the Federal Reserve makes a minute change in their policy, it affects every one of you. It affects everyone in America. That's why I'm down on these big banks, because their goal is to ultimately limit you or enslave you into debt, and then utilize their lobbying power to manipulate government to follow their policies and do things the way they want them done. Government passes regulations and laws that are never in your best interest because you don't have $5, $10, $50 million to lobby these congressmen and senators. We don't have that kind of money. In fact, the reason we don't have that kind of money is because they suck it out of us every day in taxation. So while they're bludgeoning you over the head, they're also robbing from your pocketbook. And then they and the bankers walk off together, arm in arm, to go have a drink of single malt scotch, laughing all the way to the bank. Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey. This guy is a piece of human trash. You heard me say it. He is a piece of human trash. He is one of the most liberal senators in the Senate. He's a New Jersey guy. I'm embarrassed to admit. And he was the guy who just got caught not long ago. He had an illegal alien working for him who was not only an illegal alien, but a convicted sex offender. Well, why is, by the way, and that begs the entire question, why is there an illegal alien who is also a sex offender still in the country? I mean, you've got to be kidding me, right? Why didn't we take this scrawny rat and drag him over by his collar and kick him back over the border with a gigantic eye tattooed on his forehead? so that when he comes back in here, we can say to every farmer and rancher down in Texas, he's like a coyote. It's open season. If he comes back over the border again, just do what you got to do. Anyway, Bob Menendez is now being investigated by the FBI for sleeping with underage Dominican prostitutes. So apparently, it's not only his employees that are sex offenders. I mean, you gotta be kidding me, stuff. You can't make this stuff up, people. You just can't make this stuff up. This Menendez is such a piece of trash. When we come back, I'll kind of update you on him. But, I mean, if this doesn't show that these elitist asses are out of control, I don't know what else is gonna. When you hear the term jackass and you think of a Democrat, this guy's picture is in the dictionary next to that word. All right, we're going to be back in just a minute.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
The Tea Party is the most important, most successful, and most powerful political movement in the nation. Despite the best efforts of the left and the media, despite the best effort, by the way, of some radio consultants to try and dismiss this movement, the fact of the matter is, it's the most significant and powerful political force in this nation today. And thank God for that.
Mark Levin is on the radio.
Mark Levin, weekdays 5 until 8 on 107.1 The Point.
I don't think our listeners are listening to me to see who Glenn Beck's going to vote for. No. That's not who they are. I mean, if we haven't gotten around to pissing you off yet, if we haven't gotten to your candidate yet, we will. Mm-hmm. We will. But, we are not predictable on candidates because we don't hold fast to any party, nor do we want to.
This is the Glenn Beck Program. Weekdays from 2 to 5, it's Glenn Beck on the Ozarks' Best News Talk 107.1.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. I am back from Washington, D.C. with a report on what happened at the National Review Institute. All of the headliners, including Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, Bobby Jindal, and what they had to say, plus the debate on immigration and how it played out. All on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks' Best News Talk 107.1.
Make your voice heard on all today's biggest headlines. On the next Alan Colmes Show, from the war of words over spending and the debt to the battle over gun control. Call in to be a part of the liveliest talk on radio. It may be cold outside, but the debates over the big issues of 2013 are just heating up on the next Alan Colmes Show.
Weekdays 9 to midnight, it's the Alan Colmes Show on the Ozarks' Best News Talk 107.1 The Point.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Menendez is in it this time, folks. He's apparently been going down to the Dominican Republic in violation of Senate ethics rules, by the way, by accepting trips paid for by someone else to make matters worse, right? But then while he's down there in a whole series of these alcohol bath parties, they've been paying these underage girls for sex, and this girl was 16, this one girl, and she has actually submitted a written testimony to the FBI. And, I mean, this guy is just, I mean, this is beyond comprehension. The FBI guy says, I have in my possession an original document written in her own hand. She's 19 now, but took part in private parties with Senator Menendez when she was only 16. I mean, this is beyond comprehension. I'm quite sure this is Bob Menendez, the friend of Solomon Melgen. He's a an eye doctor down in Miami. I had sexual relations with him several times, and I can't forget his face. I met him as Bob. Then I knew who he was. He was a senator in the United States, and his name is Bob Menendez. Asked how often she had sex with the senator, she replies, in 2009, I saw Bob 3 times at least, first in February, then in May and June. I recall his visit in June because that month, it was my 17th birthday. Then she met twice in 2010 and again in December of 2011. There's an act out there called the Protect Act, which bars American residents or citizens from paying for underage sexual activity outside of the United States, because even irrespective of what the law is out there, but even over there, the age of consent is 18. So, people, look, this is just absolutely pathetic. I mean, this just gives you an example that these people think that they're above the law, that what applies to you doesn't apply to them. It shows their absolutely debased and corrupt mentality, how they review and look at you and I, that we are chattel or food for their benefit or aggrandizement. And, it's just an absolutely shameful example of how Congress needs to be completely removed from office, every one of them. Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. In Iceland, you know how they fixed their problem over there? This is going to come as a surprise to you that you haven't heard this in the news, so I'm going to tell you how they did it. It won't come as a surprise to you after you've heard and you think about it for a second, but in Iceland, how they solved their problem was basically this. When the financial crash occurred in 2008, they looked back as a realistic group and said, okay, what caused this? Well, politicians who were bribed and paid with favors and lobbying so that they would pass laws that were effective for bankers, so that they could be abusive of the system and bankrupt us as a nation. So they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We repudiate all the debt that has been built up. That means we're not going to pay it, and we're going to declare it null and void. Then we take everybody in Congress, or they have a slightly different governmental version over there. It's more like a parliament, but basically they took everybody in office and removed them. They fired them all and started a whole new Congress and said, prerequisite number 1 is you can't have run in Congress before. And then they went and prosecuted the bankers criminally and put them in prison. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is justice. That's a republic. That's the rule of law. That's something that is desperately and direly missing in America. The rule of law. We have no law. The law is only applied to those peasants that get in the way of the dukes and the lords and the ladies that rule us. What don't you get about that? These people operate and violate the law with impunity, and there ain't a damn thing that you can say or do about it. And then, when you make the slightest infraction, even in complete innocence, they pound you into salt. I present Joe Nixon as the perfect example. And these scuzzy, slimy bureaucrats who have no accountability to anybody destroy people, lives, industries, families, just so that they can either assuage their personal vendetta or punch their bureaucratic report card so they can step one more rung up the ladder of deceit, death, and dishonor. How shameful. How pathetic. How un-American. How disgraceful. How illegal. How unethical. You've heard me say it before. Integrity is who you are when no one's looking. Well, Mr. Milkboard Man, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Obama, we know who you are when no one's looking. We know exactly who you are when no one's looking. and you are a shameful disgrace of a human being. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? We've only got a minute or so before the break, but I would encourage you guys, you can pick up the Wits End Classic Barbershop Hair Hotline and give us a call here at 257-1111. That's 257-1111. And then our toll-free number, if you live out in the hinterlands, is 866-554-6636. That's 866-554-6636. At the top of the hour, we're going to have a news and weather break, and then the Dixons are going to be here to discuss with us, what transpired yesterday with all of this nonsense with their farm. And you're going to have an opportunity, you're going to have a ringside seat to hear exactly how these folks were violated, abused, misused, rolled by the Missouri Milk Board, the Food and Drug Administration, the USDA, and the FDA, and and the courts, by the way, right here, our local courts. I mean, they could have simply made a ruling that said, you know what, these guys got an opportunity in fair justice. They got 36,000 pounds of cheese here. We're going to give them a chance to go out there and test all of the cheese, and we'll destroy that which is bad, and we'll keep that which is good. If you find one apple in the basket that you just picked that is no good, was either rotten or has a worm in it, what do? You throw the whole basket out? Of course not. Of course not. You take that one apple and you destroy it. You throw it away. But you don't destroy everything. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, do you? Of course not. I mean, if we wanted to clean house and make sure that we had a clean slate, instead of starting with a guy who's making milk, raw milk cheese, we'd start with Congress. We'd grab every one of them by their collar and drag them back, fire them, and restart the whole process over again. This time with a constitutional basis. Something that hasn't existed in this country for well over 120 years. We call ourselves a constitutional republic. It's a joke. Have you noticed? Have you ever heard a politician use the term republic in their speeches on TV, when they're talking to reporters, when they're giving a speech? No. They always say a democracy. Do you know the difference between a democracy and a republic? Well, a democracy is mob rule. In other words, if the majority votes for this, that's the mob, and they get what they want. So now when you hear me use a phrase like the ticks now outweigh the dog, you understand why the dog can't even get rid of the ticks, because the ticks have more power and they sit there and bleed the dog dry and kill him. That's what's happening to America. In a constitutional republic, we have a base foundation of law that says this is the rule of law. And it is designed to protect the minority from the majority's abusive power. So you can't have a majority that says, hey, there's 10 of us here, 7 of us work like Hebrew slaves and make a ton of money. I'm sorry, 3 of us work like Hebrew slaves and make a ton of money, and the other 7 of us sit on our couches all day long and eat potato chips, but we want those 3 to have to distribute their income to us so that we can live just as nicely as they do. A rule of law, a constitutional republic, says you 7 don't have the right to take their wealth to feed your laziness and or ineptness. We'll be back.
Linked to Al-Qaeda. They've been pushing north from the south of the African country, recapturing towns from the rebels and destroying weapons the rebels leave behind. France hopes its involvement in Mali will be over quickly, but promised backup from Mali's West African neighbours has been less than impressive. Defence chiefs from those countries are holding an emergency meeting today.
Fox News Radio's Simon Owen. French forces today reporting they've taken control of an airport and a bridge in the town of Gao.
You're listening to Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
There's more to Fox News Radio than meets the ear. Go behind the headlines and join the conversation on the hottest stories of the day on the Fox News Radio Facebook page. Be a part of the Fox News Radio Facebook fan community. Post comments and tell us your opinions. See behind-the-scenes photos and videos and post your reactions to the stories that matter to you. Click the like button on Facebook and connect with breaking news and features like Fox in the Fast Lane, House Call for Help, and more. Go to Facebook.com/Fox News Radio.
Weeknights, we're busting out a brand new lineup. First, market fraud, government abuse, corruption. At 5, nothing's off limits on money with Melissa Francis. Then, from bloated bank fees to consumer scams. At 6, Jerry's exposing the issues impacting your wallet. Plus, get smart market insight and trusted analysis you won't find anywhere else. At 7, Lou Dobbs is all business. And the first and last name in business, Cavuto, shedding light on the biggest stories making headlines at 8. Only on the Fox Business Network, giving you the power to prosper.
A garment factory fire in Dhaka, Bangladesh kills 6 workers, according to police, with 5 others hurt, all women. 112 people died in a factory fire in Bangladesh in November. Israel's military commander in the West Bank's calling for a review after 6 Palestinians were shot and killed in less than 2 weeks.
Scores of youth took to the streets of Bethlehem this week to throw rocks and Molotov cocktails at military positions near the security wall that separates the city from Jerusalem. Tear gas was fired back and plastic-coated steel bullets. Some were seriously injured. One 15-year-old boy hit in the face with a tear gas canister has serious wounds to his face. His dad is angry and will lodge a complaint.
They didn't do anything, no throwing any stones, anything, so I have to complain about that.
The unrest began after a number of killings in the West Bank this year, prompting the international community to question Israel's use of live fire. In Jerusalem, Emily with the Fox News Radio.
Last summer's drought here is leading to toxic fungus in corn.
When there's a drought like we had last summer, it's easier for certain fungi to sprout up in corn and other grain crops. Those fungi produce aflatoxin.
It induces liver cancer very commonly in humans.
John Leslie is professor of plant pathology at Kansas State University. He tells Fox News Radio the Food and Drug Administration was forced this year to allow growers to mix in a very low level of contaminated corn with higher grade corn. Otherwise,
we'd have food shortages and our food prices would be up.
Leslie says he's convinced that the level of contaminated corn allowed into the food supply is at a safe level.
Fox News Radio's Jill Nato. The website of the U.S. Sentencing Commission appears to be down after being taken over by a group claiming to be the hacker activist organization Anonymous. A message on its website says this was to avenge the death of Aaron Schwartz. He's an internet activist who committed suicide. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News Radio.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. I am back from Washington, D.C. with a report on what happened at the National Review Institute. All the headliners, including Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, Bobby Jindal, and what they had to say, plus the debate on immigration and how it played out, all on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, we have mostly sunny skies, high near 49 degrees. And then tonight, good chance of showers after midnight, a low around 30 on Sunday. Very good chance of showers, cloudy skies, high near 48 degrees. I'm Dawn James, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice. Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right, we are here. It is the top of the hour. Thank you for joining America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this hour. and quite frankly, since it's my show, every hour. It is 7:07 on the nose, and we have been joined this morning by a couple of friends of ours. You know, yesterday we talked about this Morningland Dairy issue. I talked about it the day before that, and it's really important that you guys have an opportunity to recognize what transpired here and what was done with this Morningland Dairy. The Milk Board here in Missouri has basically abused the life out of these folks, and we're going to have them kind of come on with us this morning and talk a little bit about what actually transpired, what their experience has been, what they've been through in the past 2 years, because this thing has really devastated them. It's devastated their family. It's destroyed their farm. It's put multiple people out of work, and I think it's an opportunity for you to hear directly from the Dixons. So good morning. We are joined this morning by Joe and Denise Dixon. They are the owners of the farm, and Morningland Dairy is based out in Mountain View, Missouri. And so good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Bring that mic in a little closer to you, and you guys will be just fine.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Thank you for coming and spending the time to come in and join us this morning in the studio. You guys have really been through the mill in the last couple of years. And I think yesterday was the climax of that, and I'm hoping that this is the end of your legal troubles with the Milk Board, the FDA, the USDA, and the court system. They came yesterday and removed some 36,420 pounds of cheese from your farm and destroyed it. And this is the culmination of a multiple-year problem that you've been fighting and dealing with these groups. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a background on what's happened? Denise, why don't you kind of... both of you pointed at each other. This is radio, guys. You know, unless you're watching the streaming, they both looked at each other and pointed at each other. You take it. No, you take it. Denise, maybe you could kind of bring us up to speed.
You mean from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, you just give us the brief 30-second story of how this kind of came to pass.
Well, we feel like we were manhandled. There was an agenda. They came in, and am I not talking close enough?
There you go. Sorry. Now you are. You can move that mic, boom.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, they came in and told us that there was a problem. We tried to we thought that they were dealing with us to work it out. But we realized in very short order that it was part of an agenda, and we were simply being crushed.
Yeah. And this started with cheese that you had sold. Now, you sold cheese, your cheese that you manufactured, and this is raw milk cheese, people. For the record, let's just kind of set the pace here. This is raw milk cheese, which means that the milk boards and the FDA and the USDA don't really like these particular types of farmers because they want everything pasteurized and homogenized to the point where it is so sterile that basically, it has no value to you as a food or as a product. And so they had you folks have been making this cheese for some 30 years. You distributed it in over 100 retail locations, if I'm not mistaken, and then you, in addition to that, had sold some to a location or had a distributor in California. They had some cheese that was tainted. They traced it back and said that it was your cheese that was tainted. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Well, they said it was tainted. There's no guarantee it was ever tainted because in California, they waited 55 days before they contacted the state of Missouri and said there may be a possibility of Listeria and Staph aureus in the cheese. Then the state of Missouri comes in and puts an embargo order on the door. From there, it's all downhill.
Right. So they basically put a padlock, if you will, figuratively or literally.
Figuratively.
Okay, on your operation, and they brought the USDA in, who then did
actually the FDA.
The FDA, I'm sorry, who came in and did some 99 swabs to identify whether or not you had Listeria in your facility. Am I correct? So these swabs are like a gigantic Q-tip, and they basically go in and swab down the countertops where you make it, and they swab the drains out, and they swab under the corners to try to find maybe some hidden bacteria. Is that a fair?
Yes, that's a fair assessment.
Okay. They did 99 of these swabs, and out of the 99 came back negative for their cultures.
Correct.
So at that point, the FDA kind of said, okay, we're hands off. There's nothing for us to do here, and we're gonna take a backseat role. Is that correct?
Actually, they let us know that they were finished with their
investigation,
but that they might be back.
Okay.
Well, they let us know they were finished with their investigation, but they said they didn't send us a letter. They didn't send us a letter until about 2 years later, year and a half later.
Yes,
stating that we were no
letter.
longer, that they would cleared us, but yet they could always come back if they needed to.
Sure, and I can understand that they do that as a standard practice, where they want to basically have the opportunity to at any time step back in and reopen the investigation.
If they need to, yes.
If they feel like they need to, right? So okay, so the FDA is off the case. They say basically we're clearing you from our investigation. We have the right to come back in at a later date if we feel it's necessary.
Well,
then
they still had the option. They had still come in, and they were the ones pushing for a recall. They told us we needed to do a recall. We had to do a recall, but on record they couldn't say we had to do a recall.
They said if we didn't do the recall, they would do it for us. So
they intimidated you into doing the recall.
Yes.
Which is standard, by the way, for federal agencies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, intimidation is the way in which they operate. You either do it our way, or we're going to force you to do it.
Well, they said they didn't have the regulatory power at that point in time to force to do it, but then they turned around and said you will do it, and then either the State Milk Board or the FDA one leaked we were going to do a recall to force us to do a recall. And when we pointed out that when we wrote a email out to everybody stating that we were forced to do a recall, we were pushed into doing a recall by the FDA, said we don't have the right to do that.
Yeah, they said it was voluntary.
So they backed off.
Right.
But yet they still pushed us into a recall no matter what we wanted to do ourselves.
Sure. So the cheese was recalled from all of the distributors that you had, however much was out there. You got 100 distributors, so they brought it all back. You then brought it in and put it in this lockdown facility.
Actually, no. Most of it wasn't brought back. Most of it was consumed. We had many, many, many customers that said, we're not returning our cheese. We love our cheese.
Okay.
We know what's going on here. We know the agenda of what they're trying to do.
I see.
We will keep our cheese. We want to keep our cheese.
So out of all the people, post-recall, anyone who did not return the cheese, were there any reports of anyone becoming ill?
Never.
So
in 30 years.
In 30 years, you've never had one person report that they got ill from eating your product?
No.
Interesting. Okay, so the FDA is completed their tests. The Missouri State Milk Board, where does this go at this point? The Missouri Board comes in and they have basically told you that you can no longer produce milk or raw milk cheese. Is that correct?
We actually had to dump our milk for 5 weeks before we could just sell it conventionally.
So wait a second. So you're milking these cows every morning, right?
Yes. Morning and evening.
Morning and evening, and at that point, instead of being able to make cheese with this, you've got to dump it because they suspected that there may be something wrong with it?
Until we got the FDA results back. Now, we couldn't even sell it to the normal chain to be pasteurized and homogenized.
Yeah, but pasteurization and homogenization will eliminate any bacterial content that would be in there in the first place. That's the whole point of it.
That's the whole point is correct. But they told us we had to dump it for 5 weeks straight. We had to keep calling the FDA to finally get the test results back before we were cleared to sell to the normal conventional market to have it pasteurized and homogenized. So for 5 weeks, we had no choice but to dump this milk down the drain, eat the costs of it. Everything we had was locked up.
Right.
And so as the case continued forward, we ended up selling 16 cows to pay the bills for a month or two.
Gee whiz.
Now, Denise, I'll let you carry on as the case went forward on those 16 cows.
In my deposition, I mentioned to explain to them our
situation.
That we were financially stricken, that we had to sell 16 cows. And during the trial, the Attorney General's office,
Jessica Bloom,
lawyer, actually it was Laura Bailey Brown.
Okay, Laura Bailey Brown.
Said, so you sold 16 cows because they were sick. And I said, no.
Not because they were sick, because we had to eat.
I said, in deposition, I told you we were financially stricken. And nothing further was said. But in the judge's judgment, that's exactly what he said, that we had sick cows.
We sold 16 cows because they were sick with no evidence whatsoever.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a break coming up. If you guys hear that music in the background, that bump, that's what we call that. That means we got a minute. All right, folks, we are talking with Joe and Denise Dixon. They are the owners of Morningland Dairy in Mountain View, Missouri. This is an organization that has been completely decimated by a government out of control and administrative agencies that have absolutely no rule behind them. They operate with impunity and destroy families, industries, businesses, and individuals. And we're going to explore for your benefit the rest of this morning exactly how and where all of this went down. We're going to take a break. You're listening to America's Voice Now. We'll be back. We'll be back in just a moment.
The Missouri Department of Conservation will be offering a prescribed fire workshop for landowners. The course will be February 4th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Ozark Regional Office in West Plains. The objective of this workshop is to provide an overview of how to plan and conduct a safe and effective prescribed burn on various habitat types. Prescribed burning represents an effective and cost-efficient management tool. However, there are many issues and concerns to be considered. Effective planning is necessary to achieve beneficial effects as well as maintain a safe burn. This program will cover topics related to fire history, planning, weather, safety, and equipment needs. Participants are asked to pre-register at the Ozark Regional Office in West Plains. Call 417-256-7161. That's 417-256-7161.
I know what you're thinking, Bunk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Dirty Harry gets all his ammo from the battery station. John Rambo, you guessed it. He gets his ammo from the battery station, too. So if you need ammo, go to the place where the guys who know about ammunition go, the battery station. They have one of the largest supplies of ammunition in the area. So make sure you're stocked up and don't get low on shells. Go to the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
We're going to get callers. All right, we're back, folks. You're listening to America's Voice. My name is Mike Evans. We are visiting this morning with Joe and Denise Dixon, the owners of Morningland Dairy in Mountain View, Missouri, who have just recently been through the rigmarole with a milk board state agency as well as the FDA and other abusive agencies. They've been basically beaten up by the court system, dragged out through financial attrition to the point where they've been bankrupted. And yesterday was the culmination where an organization, the Missouri State Milk Board, came in and wiped them out of all of their product. 36,420 pounds of cheese worth somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000. We've got some callers. You guys want to take some calls real quick? And
I would like to point out one thing.
Yeah.
Through the whole case, the Missouri State Milk Board swore under oath that there's only 29,000 pounds of cheese, and they inventoried it. That figure went all the way to the Missouri Supreme Court as 29,000 pounds.
Right.
No questions asked, so people were there yesterday asking when they were going to stop taking cheese out of the cooler.
Right.
Since they swore under oath, it was only 29,000 pounds that they inventoried.
How did they end up taking 36,420, right?
That is correct.
By the way, that's a certified load weight, folks. We actually got that from a bill of lading for the actual dumpsters that were brought in. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know if you noticed, and I want to say I feel very sorry for the owners of the farm, the Dixons. I there's no words can explain what it means to me, knowing that my government would ruin your lives. But that being said, I don't know if you guys heard the news report right before you came on. And what they said was that there was a portion of tainted corn that was allowed into the system, and that the government told the corn producers that they could put a portion of, they knew it had this certain bacteria that causes liver cancer. Mm-hmm. They told them to put it in there because if they didn't, then they would have like a record low and they would lose money or something. And they said the representative who spoke about it is sure that the level doesn't pose any harm to the public. And on to the next story. But the government told the corn producers to put tainted corn that they knew was tainted and mix it in with the good corn. Well, I don't eat corn at all anymore. It's GMO'd and it's not good for you.
Sure.
But I can't believe that.
Was it a small producer, or was it Archer Daniels Midland, or it was Monsanto or somebody?
It was on the bottom of the top of the hour news, and they just made it sound. It was like just a generic thing. The corn producers, like it wasn't, and it was like don't worry about it. Everything's cool. The government's taking care of you, making sure that the economy stays good by allowing them to put tainted corn in there. But since it's mixed in with the good corn, it's not going to hurt you. It's okay. But they won't let you guys sell raw cheese, and they can't even prove. This was proven tainted.
Yeah.
With a mold that causes liver cancer. Proven. And they told them to put it in there.
That's the problem. We have administrative agencies out there that basically pick and choose winners and losers, and if you are on the wrong side of these folks, they have broad discretion. That's the term that they use for these administrative agencies, to basically do whatever they want to do to achieve whatever the purpose of that agency is. And this doesn't matter whether it's the FAA or the FCC or the FDA or the USDA or the ATF or any other organization. They are given what's called broad discretion. And the purpose behind that means that, or what that phrase means is, they can pretty much do whatever they want to do in order to meet the mandate of whatever that agency's existence is for. And what you see here happening is that they can pick winners and losers using their discretion. So if you're a large producer and they like you, or you toe the line and do what they tell you to do, then they protect you. If you're a small guy or you cross them the wrong way, then they come down on you with the hammer the hammer of the gods, basically.
Well, ma'am, we had the FDA come in. 3 agents. They came in polite, but they came in with a little bit of force, but polite. When they came in, one day, as they were doing the swabs, my son was following them around with a recorder. Well, one day they called up the morning and said, "We cannot come in today." Now, remember, this is the FDA. It's supposed to be here to protect you. They said, "We cannot come in today because one member is sick." So the next morning when they came in, I asked which member was sick. The man said I was. I asked the man then, I said, "Okay, you admit yesterday that you were sick and you could not come in." He said, "That is correct." I said, "Okay, did you go to your doctor then and get a statement from your doctor saying you're not carrying anything pathogenic to a pregnant woman, a child under the age of 2, or an immune deficient person?" He said, "I do not know how to answer that question." So I repeated the question. Did you or did you not go to your doctor, since you admitted to being sick yesterday, get a statement from your doctor saying you're not carrying anything pathogenic to a pregnant woman, a child under the age of 2, or an immune deficient person? I do not know how to answer that question. I asked the third time a little more abruptly because I was starting to get aggravated. I do not know how to answer that question. I said, "Well, what are you doing in my cheese plant in and out in the public if you're supposed to be the FDA, supposed to be representing and protecting the public, and you could be spreading exactly what you're complaining about that you say I may have in my cheese, that you have no real evidence of, but you've already shut me down?" So,
pretty amazing. Well, listen, caller. I appreciate your call, and I tell you the Dixons appreciate your support. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yes, I am so sorry I missed going there yesterday. I wish I had. However,
Well, we had quite a crowd. I have to tell you, there was probably 60 or 70 people there, and it was nice to see the community rally around these folk.
Yeah, well, a couple were there, stopped by, and told me what happened. I have a question. Can we know the name of the disposal company and their address who carted your cheese off? Because it seems to me like this message the lady from Austria had about German.
Kitty Workman.
Yeah, that they did it because they were told to.
Well, that was the inspectors that were there to actually take the product. You know, they all said, I was there. They all said, "Oh, we're just here to do the job we have to do." Mm-hmm. But you're right. The guy who actually was contracted to haul it off and who drove a little Bobcat where they loaded it up in the bucket and then he drove it over to the dumpster and threw it in there. That was Mountain Grove Rentals. And I have to tell you, the guy obviously is willing to put profit before principle because, and to me, that in and of itself is a tragedy. So yeah, there's your name drop right there. Mountain Grove Rentals were the guys who brought in a backhoe or not a backhoe but a Bobcat and drove it over there and dumped it into the dumpster. I'm not sure if the dumpster company was provided by them or not.
No, the dumpster company was provided by somebody else, and you'd have to call Hartville, where the dump is.
The Hartville dump to figure it out.
Ask them which one it was. Now, the gentleman that hauled the cheese off in the Bobcat, my son did talk to him and brought that up to him. I talked to him before he got onto the property and told him what he was coming to do. He said, well, I'm just here to drop off the Bobcat. Well, then he told my son the reason he ended up running the Bobcat because no members of the milk board knew how to run it safely, which could be very true, and that's okay. He said, so they offered him big bucks in order to run it for them. That's what he told my son. Now, he also has
that qualifies as profit before principle.
Yes, he also has a rental company right down here in West Plains, right north of town on 63.
Okay.
A branch of it.
There you go, folks.
Okay, one more question.
Yep.
Wherever this cheese is dumped, I mean, there is a location, you know where it is?
In the Hartville dump.
Yes.
Okay, can we hold a vigil there sometime, just like for dead people?
I suppose, I don't know. I have no idea. And honestly, to be honest with you, I have a question. If it's laying out there on the ground, then obviously this whole thing was a sham because according to their court documents, which, by the way, I've read myself, one decision is 11 pages, the other is 65. And if it's actually dangerous to man or beast, then what are they going to do about all the wild animals that are going to go out there and inevitably eat cheese? I mean, if they smell that cheese, and believe me, it's very odoriferous, they're going to go out there and eat that, and then what? So we got to drop the call because we've got a break coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. We appreciate you. Folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue with our discussion with Joe and Denise Dixon. We'll be back in just a moment.
The president in his weekly address praising his appointees, Richard Cordray to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to head the SEC.
Mary Jo White has decades of experience cracking down on white-collar criminals and bringing mobsters and terrorists to justice.
Republicans pushing for the Senate to pass a budget that addresses out-of-control spending. Veterans hoping a new database will help shed light on illnesses reported by some who served in Iraq and Afghanistan near burn pits.
Used to dispose of all the garbage that an army produces. Styrofoam, paints, metals, human waste. It all went up in flames, and soldiers and Marines stationed downwind breathed it all in. Now many vets and their families say they've developed a host of maladies from exposure to all that smoke. But an Institute of Medicine report was inconclusive about any long-term health effects.
Fox Radio's Karen McHugh. Fox News. We report, you decide.
We believe the better the ingredients, the better the taste to bring to you the greatest tasting pastries possible. At Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, we use organic, locally sourced, and natural ingredients of the highest quality. Every item is handcrafted and baked fresh for you each and every day. Visit Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, number 2 Evans Arcade on the Courthouse Square in downtown West Plains, or call 255-2253, and you'll be glad you did.
A big community event is coming to West Plains February 16, 2013. All ages and skill levels are encouraged to participate in the Heart of the Ozarks Half Marathon and 10K.
Proceeds will benefit the West Plains High School cross-country and track programs. There are 2 courses to choose from, a half marathon or a 10K.
Updates can be found on the Facebook page Heart of the Ozarks Half Marathon or www.jobildixon.com.
More information can also be found on Cooper & Company weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. on 107.1 The Point and The Drive Home on ESPN 100.9.
A developer at a U.S.-based critical infrastructure company was caught outsourcing his work to China, meaning that he was paying someone else to do his job. Here's how Bob spent his day. Surfed the internet for a couple of hours, and then he watched cat videos. 11:30, he went to lunch. 1 o'clock, he went on eBay. 2 o'clock to 4:30, he was on Facebook. 5 o'clock, he went home. Cat videos? Really?
Saturdays noon to 3 and weekdays at 7:35 for your digital minute. It's Kim Commando on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
Are you looking to save money? Did you know that in the last 20 years, interest rates have never been this low? That's why you should make the smart call today to West Plains Savings and Loan to start your home mortgage. Just imagine how much money you'll save. Key word is save, as in savings and loan. Your loan starts here and stays here. Never would it be sold to a secondary lender. Call today, 256-3042. That's 256-3042. West Plains Savings and Loan. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
News Talk 107 on The Point weather sponsorships are available for your business marketing plans. Contact Cody or Josh at 255-2548 for more information.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, we have mostly sunny skies, high near 49 degrees. And then tonight, good chance of showers after midnight, a low around 30 on Sunday. Very good chance of showers, cloudy skies, high near 48 degrees. I'm Dawn James, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Okay, our phone lines are just banging, and so we're going to take a couple of quick calls, and then we're going to try to let Joe and Denise kind of interweave their story in between these calls. I know there's been so much interest and so much activity out here about this issue, and our phone lines just keep jumping off the charts, so we're going to take a few. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, it's Mike. I'll be quick.
Good morning.
Yeah, I could not make it yesterday due to transportation problems.
Sure.
So I spent my time on the Internet and Facebook letting people know about what was happening.
Gotcha.
And calling our lawmakers, and talked to Mike Cunningham yesterday, talked to Sean Rhodes the day before. They are looking into it. A lot of this has had to be explained to them. They said they were not aware of the situation.
Right.
I want to encourage every listener out there to contact Sean Rhodes and Mike Cunningham, state senator and state representative, and let them know. These guys are good guys, and a lot of us helped get them elected.
Sure.
Need to remind them.
Well, and the reason why we need to remind those two individuals is that Mike Cunningham is the state senator for our district, and Sean Rhodes is the state representative for our district, the 154th district here in Howell County, and that, of course, is where the farm is located.
And all it takes for evil to triumph, as it is triumphing now, is for good men to do nothing.
Edmund Burke.
We have good men in the General Assembly that need to pass legislation rebuking the Milk Board and the FDA and making this family financially whole again.
Well, I'm going to go one step beyond rebuking. I'm going to tell you right now that I'm already looking at trying to put a piece of legislation together that says that every agency out there, administrative agency out there, has to have a constitutional statement of compliance with every administrative rule that's produced, because the only way to get rid of these kinds of administrative rulings and this broad discretion is to basically grab them up by the collar and like a dog that hits the end of its chain and say, if you're going to pass an administrative regulation, which is treated as law, but no congressman or senator or anybody else has voted upon, and you have broad discretion to then institute and exercise that law in whatever way you see fit, then we have to have some kind of verification that the law is actually constitutional on its face, number one, and number two, that you have earned the delegated authority that you're going to exercise.
That will help us in the future with situations like this, and people are worried about that. I spoke with a friend who makes cheese in Oregon County yesterday, who would like to have a cheese-making business and is afraid to do so now, afraid of our government.
Not surprising.
Okay, well, that will help in the future. For now, with the legislature can take action to help these people out, to help undo the harm.
Well, if the legislature could take action to actually reimburse them for their losses, that would be, they've lost everything. They lost their farm, they lost their herd, they've lost their everything down to their, basically, except for their socks, underwear, and their kids. They've lost everything over this, and it's shameful.
I also spoke to Sheriff Shannon yesterday. Seems like a good man, but he was insisting that he would have been in contempt of court if his officers did not show up there. He said to enforce it. Now, my point here is he's a good guy, but again, good men do nothing, evil triumphs.
Well, yeah, but
if he's in that office, he should have accepted the contempt of court charge and refused to obey an immoral law.
Mm-hmm. Well, I won't disagree with that. I will comment on this, and I'm going to, after I drop you off, Mike, I'll comment on this issue. But there was a lawful order, and I'm not sure that anyone could have made a difference in that from a political perspective. Even if the sheriff had been out there, the court order was the court order. So I'm not sure he could have stopped anything. The position that you're suggesting there, where he would be able to have an impact, would really be more from the standpoint of letting the residents and the citizens of Howell County recognize that he was a guy willing to stand up behind them, rather than it would have been a token example of, hey, I'm gonna stand here and fight for you guys. I get it, and that may well should have happened. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike. Mr. and Ms. Dixon, I was there yesterday, and it was a new load to me to see something like this happen. I do want to commend you on how well you handled yourself. And the speech that you made at the outset of that thing, I think, was absolutely to the point and wonderful. You are to be commended. Now, I am going to say something very negative now, and I'm going to use my name. This is Boyd Moore. Don Falls is the face and the embodiment of what is going wrong. I saw him yesterday. The rest of them were humiliated to be there, or they appeared, not that excuses them, but he had this sneering look on his face during the entire affair. And I think he should be ashamed of himself, and he should be held accountable.
Well, I appreciate your sentiment. Thank you for that.
We appreciate very much you being there. Appreciate your comments.
It broke my heart yesterday, but everybody out there that is hearing this, this is something that you need to wake up and see that this is a microcosm of what is going on in this entire country that we love and live in.
Yep.
Thank you very kindly.
You're welcome. This is a perfect example of that, Joe.
And this is where, if we don't wake up, we don't stand, we have no country left.
Yeah.
The politicians now believe they are the kings. We're supposed to be the kings in our own castle. They're supposed to be representing us, not us representing them. They have taken it to the point to where they believe they are in control of everything instead of the people are in control. Instead of our God is in control, who does have set weights and measures, set judgments. We told from day one, if there was really a contamination of our cheese, we would destroy it ourselves. There has been no evidence to date from the state or the milk board or the the FDA stating of any contamination, other than we did send some cheese off ourselves and have tested to a lab that Don Falls said he knew nothing about. When we sent it off, he said he knew nothing about this lab, but try them. We then find out that's the lab they use to prosecute people with. We then find out he calls the lab up and has the date codes changed on the cheese on test results that's going to court. We paid for those tests. Under oath, the milk board stated that those were their tests. We paid for them out of our own pocket, and even with the test results that came in, they were not conclusive on anything. They said a weekly positive for listeria, and there's many types of listeria that are not pathogenic to humans. We questioned what weekly positive is. Then it came back 99% probable weekly positive, which sounds serious until you understand probable is 51 out of 100. 99% of 51 is 50.5% likelihood something's there. Folks, this is raw milk cheese. This has the natural enzymes, bacteria in it to help build your immune system, not destroy it, not tear it down like the McDonald's food, the hamburger you've seen on the internet that sits there for months and won't even grow mold.
That's the scary part. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
I just wanted to make the comment that the politicians need to be held themselves financially responsible. These people need to be made whole, but not at the expense of the taxpayers. It wasn't the taxpayers that did this to them. When they are financially responsible, they will become responsible.
Well, that's a very, very good point, and I appreciate it. Thank you. That's actually an excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, let me just clarify to that caller's point. And this is a part of Restore Missouri, which I've been fighting for since we created it, and I've been fighting for this all my life. We have a problem in our country, and that is when individuals act, whether they're bureaucrats like the milk board, or whether they're the president, or whether they're a judge, or whether they're a prosecutor. These people operate with something called immunity. Now, what that means is that even if they do something wrong during the course of the work that they're doing, they cannot be held accountable for their actions, either criminally and or civilly. And in order to hold a prosecutor or a milk board member accountable for their actions is almost impossible. There are ways to do it, but I have to tell you, it costs a ton of money, and it's very, very, very difficult to do. And we need to correct that. We need to say that just because you have a government job and you're paid by the state or the federal government or anybody else, if you're paid by the taxpayers, you're accountable to those taxpayers to do the job properly, number one, and number two, to do it objectively, right? And if you violate the law in order to achieve some personal vendetta or achieve a personal goal or improve your own bureaucratic, lot in life, that you can be held accountable financially and criminally for the actions that you take. I mean, if you commit a crime in an effort to improve your own personal financial gain, you can go to prison for that. If you commit a crime as a bureaucrat in order to improve your own personal lot in life and a financial gain and or maybe a job title, you have absolute judicial immunity. And that's inexcusable. So, Joe, you've pointed out on a couple of instances here that these tests that were done turned out to be negative. We know that raw milk cheese, of course, by its nature, I mean, that would be like saying, well, you're not going to find any enzymes in yogurt. Well, what's the point of eating it then? I mean, yes. The idea of having when I spoke to 3 state representatives and 2 senators on Thursday. And basically, my call to them was to intercede on your behalf and have the milk board do something which was the most simple and judicious process that could have been asked. Mm-hmm. Simply give you folks 120 to 180 days to go out and have an independent laboratory test the cheese that you had, this 36,420 pounds, but not a sampling of 4 pounds or 14 pounds or even 400 pounds. Test the cheese that's there, evaluate what is actually, now of course some of it has gone bad because it's been sitting locked under lock and key for 2 years. So you may have lost half of it. You may have lost 60% of it. You may have lost 70% of it. Yeah. You may have lost 90% of it. But the simple truth is that they should have only destroyed that which was actually bad and allowed you to keep and retain and sell off or liquidate that which was still good.
Well, Don Falls, when he came in, we offered to do that from the first week. They said, no, it's all suspect. No matter what you do, it's all suspect. It went as far as to say, our plant manager asked him, he said, Don, in other words, you're telling us then that if we would test this 140-pound block of cheese up to 100 times and it came back negative every time. Could we sell it? Don said absolutely not. It was
Right.
still all be suspect.
So he put you in a lose-lose situation.
Well,
there was effectively no way that you could ever salvage the
It
product.
put us into the situation. I looked at Don. I said, Don, in other words, you're telling me then you don't trust your own regulations. You don't trust your own labs. You don't trust your own testing.
Right, because if the tests come back positive, then you have no arguments.
That's correct.
I mean, it's just beyond comprehension that these guys were as determined as they were. Because it's obvious when you look at it with an objective eye, right? You have to recognize that, and I used this analogy earlier this morning. If you go and pick a full basket of apples, and one of those is rotten or has a worm in it, you don't throw the entire basket out, you throw out the offensive apple, right? And in this case, they should have given you an opportunity to go out there and test the cheese, even at your own cost and expense, and say, hey, we've got 36,000 pounds of this, half of it's now good or half of it's now no good or whatever. Look, it doesn't even matter. If only 10% of it was good, it was 10% that would have maybe been able to help you recover.
Keep us alive a little longer.
Keep you alive a little longer, right? And so, and again, this is just the same thing as government going in and seizing. I mean, it's no different than them going in and taking money out of your bank account. Because ultimately, that was the product that you sold. That was the production of your business.
We have lost over the time that we were the first 6 months to a year. This case had cost us approximately between $400,000 and $500,000. Now, that does not include lawyers who the Farmers to Consumers Legal Defense Fund has defended us. But it has cost us that much to keep this case going on, to keep the cooler going, because during this whole case, up until the Supreme Court said they would not hear the case, and we went to the Supreme Court of Missouri all the way to try to get them to hear the case. All the way through, and they rejected hearing the case. We had to keep the cooler up for almost 2.5 years. We had to keep the grounds up, the cooler up, refrigerated. Had to keep everything still to state specifications while this whole case was going on, which drove me out of town and basically, like Mike said, has taken us to the point of where we have basically nothing left. But we're willing to do this fight. We're willing to do this fight because if they could prove something was really wrong, we told them from day one we would destroy the cheese ourselves. They have not been able to prove anything. Even the lab tests that we had done ourselves, they hadn't proved anything, because when you come back 99% probable and the state milk board man can call them up and have them change information on it, and then it's approved in court, then under oath in court the state says those are our tests when I paid for them.
So these people lied actually under oath.
Yes. And nobody's held them accountable.
See, I mean, while this case is now, from the court's perspective, closed and settled because your cheese has now been destroyed.
It is not in the public perspective. It is not in the legislative perspective. We can move forward and get these things changed.
Right.
And which is really what needs to be done.
Right. And in addition to that, there may be some possibility of some kind of, and I'm going to introduce you guys to a lawyer I want you to talk to about this, because if you've got the sworn testimony and you've got the actual transcripts from these cases when they were argued before the court and so forth and so on, and you can prove that he perjured himself under oath, then, I mean, even they don't have the ability to step aside from that. Now, I know that the courts will do everything in their power to protect these individuals because they don't want a perception out there that, I mean, you go into court, and what's the first thing that the court will tell you? Well, the officer always has deference. We believe them over the person who's being charged for the speeding ticket or the bad milk, right? And so it's presumed by the court that an official in government always has a motivation to tell the truth. And we all know that just by human nature that's an impossibility.
May I say also that the Attorney General's office, their job is to find the truth, not to protect the guilty.
Right.
Now, if we were guilty,
or to persecute.
So be it. Or to persecute is correct. Their job is to find the truth as representatives of the state of Missouri. They're hired by us to represent us, not any individual party. And in this case...
Or a special interest.
Or a special interest. In this case, Don Falls came into our plant and said how much we were improving it, how much better it was, how much things were doing better, because we were improving things, because Jim and Marge Reiners, that's the people we bought it from, it started it. They had it for 28 years. We had it for a little over 2. They had been letting it go down just a little bit, not much, but a little bit, because that's what people do when they get ready to retire. we took it over. We were getting ready to build a new cooler and make improvements, which had already been approved for by the milk board. It had already been sent before them and approved. By Don Falls. And then he comes into court and says in court he was fearful of our plant. Now, which is totally a contradiction of what was originally stated.
If he gives you a clean bill of health in one on the left hand and then turns around and says he's scared to be in there with his right hand, you got to wonder what's the guy's true motivation.
And there was no write-ups on us as far as...
On the inspection reports, no, there was never a red flag, never any warning of any sort.
There was a couple write-ups on where we had, when the ladies would go out after cutting cheese, they'd sit outside for a little while on their break, and they would use sometimes a insecticide because there's a few wasps flying around in the summertime. One day it was sitting on the office desk, on the top of the desk. That was one of the write-ups.
Okay.
Another write-up was the grass may be a little too close to the building, so we needed to cut it a little lower against the building in case of rodents. So be it. That's good. Not a problem.
But there was no complaints of unsanitary conditions or anything along those lines that would be a real true indicator that you were, operating this.
We believe the FDA proved that with 99 swabs of negative.
Right. And good point. I mean, if they did 99 swabs, folks, by the way, a good indicator of the real status of this entire debacle or affair, when the FDA has unlimited resources and they have unlimited motivation, to be honest with you, to bow to the lobbyists who are the pasteurization milk producers, who really, you guys are a thorn in their side. They don't like you. And to be honest with you, I suspect, and you can tell me I'm wearing a tinfoil hat if you want, but I suspect that the real motivation here was not so much are we protecting the citizens of Missouri and or the country and or the world. We were protecting the special interests who have paid us to try to persecute these types of businesses who are outside the mainstream. And look, here's the perfect example to prove that. We've only been pasteurizing in this country for the past 50, maybe 60 years at best, right? On a routine basis. And prior to that, for the last, let's say, 500 or 600 years, human beings have been drinking cow's milk without any...
Thousands of years.
I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. 500 or 600 years and literally thousands for goat milk. Right?
Okay, yes.
So when you talk about people drinking raw milk, it's been going on for thousands of years. Longer for goats, obviously, than cows. But the simple reality is this. What we have now is a dairy industry and a dairy association that is willing to pay to have their competitors persecuted. And they utilize an agency like the Milk Board, like the FDA, like the USDA to accomplish that. And that is the real true problem here, is that you've got large industry, large businesses who are willing to pay to... It's like the Milk Board, if you will, has almost become a mercenary on the part of the large milk producers who don't want you in the business. Because the truth, there's a reason for that, by the way, is listeners out there will be saying, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't know how you think that way. Well, here's the real truth, folks. Raw milk is far better for you than pasteurized, than homogenized milk. And so the milk producers out there don't want you aware of the fact that as a result of their pasteurization and homogenization project, you are losing the benefit of all of the enzymes and all of the normal, natural, positive bacteria that is produced by milk. I mean, I'll give you an example. Have you noticed in the past, in our lifetimes, the number of kids who now are allergic to everything under the sun? I'll give you an example. When I was a kid and growing up in school, there was always that one kid who was, he had allergies, he had a runny nose, he had itchy eyes, or whatever the case may be. I go see these kids today, and they all have allergies. And allergies are basically created by the fact that your body doesn't have an immune system that's willing and or capable to fight back against that. There weren't, obese kids. I mean, there was always the token obese kid or two when we grew up. But look back at a magazine that shows you from the 60s or the 50s, right here in Missouri. Go back and look at those pictures. You will not see fat people. Everyone was thin or reasonably had a reasonable body mass index, right? Today, obesity is the norm. I mean, go into a store and try to find a pair of pants that, especially for women, that is not a size, whatever. I mean, it's just out of control. And part of that is the product that we're eating. Part of that is what we see in our food. Look at the ingredients that comes on a box of cereal or a box of, mac and cheese. I mean, it's more chemical than actual food product these days, it appears. Right. And I think that these agencies are out there, they have a mandated food plan for us. And they want to have absolute dictatorial control over what we can and cannot eat. And, if you violate that, then, you're a bug to be squashed.
The FDA has put in court documents that the American people do not have the right to choose what they eat. And my wife sitting over here, she can tell you the story about people who called us up and emailed us and sent us letters thanking us. They said we can finally eat cheese again because we can digest it. Now
that was quite common to hear, to receive letters, get phone calls from people who were thankful to be able to eat cheese. Talked to one lady who had suffered with Crohn's disease, which is a terrible, debilitating disease, and she had not been able to eat cheese for 5 years. And she said, "I just want to thank you because I can eat cheese again." That's amazing. Was quite common.
Yes.
Raw milk cheese and raw milk products are actually eliminate lactose intolerance, right? Mm-hmm. And how many people do we hear now have lactose intolerance? I mean, you can find soy milk and milk alternative products on the shelves. 20 years ago, those didn't exist, but that's because we didn't have enough of a critical mass of people with lactose intolerance to need all those products.
Right.
And now, as we're into second and third and fourth generations of people who haven't had raw milk products, now we're starting to see the long-term results,
It's true.
So I find that, when we come back, we're going to have a break coming up in just a minute, and it's the top of the hour break, so there's a news and weather insert in here. But when we come back, I want you to tell the story about the FDA people who insisted on trying to buy a block of cheese, even though you were under embargo not to sell it, and how they threatened and intimidated you because you wouldn't violate the law, which, of course, then they would have turned around and entrapped you saying, well, you sold us something. So it's an interesting story, folks, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. But this is exactly indicative. This story Joe's going to tell you.
Denise will have to tell that one. It happened.
Okay, well, Denise, this is indicative of exactly what happens with these agencies and how they use intimidation and this unanswerable power they have to basically just beat us down until we have been ground into dust.
Yeah, we asked them to sign a document saying they would obey the Constitution of the United States of America, and their hands started shaking. They handed it back and said, "We can't touch this."
Amazing. Hey, we're going to take a break, folks. You're listening to America's Voice Now. We have with us in studio this morning Joe and Denise Dixon, the owners of Morningland Dairy, which has just been put out of business effectively once and for all. The final hammer's been dropped to bury them. And we're going to talk more about that with them for the remainder of this morning's session. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
News Talk for Missouri and Arkansas. 107.1 KBMV, Birch Tree, West Plains. The Point.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. President Obama using his weekly message to urge Congress to confirm two nominees, Richard Cordray at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and to run the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Mary Jo White has decades of experience cracking down on white-collar criminals and bringing mobsters and terrorists to justice. At the SEC, she will help complete the task of reforming Wall Street and keep going after irresponsible behavior in the financial industry so that taxpayers don't pay the price.
The Republican message is focused on federal spending.
We cannot afford to keep adding over $1 trillion to the debt every year, as we have for the past 4 years.
South Dakota Senator John Thune. At its winter meeting, the Republican National Committee reviewing lessons learned from the presidential race.
It was pretty easy to see the differences in the Republican and Democratic Party priorities early in the campaign.
Well, we were playing footsie, debating each other 22 times. They were spending $100 million on technology.
RNC Chairman Reince Priebus tells reporters after his re-election he's ready to mount a perpetual campaign, which will mean
a lot of volunteers and a lot more paid help in a lot of states at a grassroots community level.
And a lot of money to pay for it, but Priebus would not say where that money will come from. In Charlotte, Rich Johnson, Fox News Radio.
The Egyptian military is sent to the port city of Port Said, where there are deadly riots following death sentences for 21 people involved in soccer violence last year.
These are people who pride themselves on their terrible relationship with the police, and the suspicion among a lot of independent eyewitnesses and analysts is that in the rioting last February, the police were extremely complicit, if not actually having instigated mayhem and bloodletting that followed.
Sky News correspondent Sam Kiley. Victoria Azarenka from Belarus repeats as Australian Open tennis champ, beating Li Na from China in 3 sets. You're listening to Fox News Radio. Fair and balanced.
You're in the Fox Light.
Dave Grohl's new documentary, Sound City, will screen in Los Angeles on January 31st, followed by a one-off concert featuring Stevie Nicks and John Fogerty. Jessica Simpson is getting her own sitcom. The singer is reteaming with the executives behind her reality series Fashion Star for a semi-autobiographical scripted comedy. South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone have launched their own production company, Important Studios, giving them greater control over future projects, including a film adaptation of their Broadway hit, The Book of Mormon. And Jamie Foxx has returned to the studio to work on his 5th album. Rapper Kanye West is producing the project and will join will.i.am and other stars on the new track.
Love for the melody, notes on a sheet.
In Hollywood, Adam Housley, Fox News.
The Fox Light.
Keep listening for more Focus from the Fox Light on Fox News Talk.
The flu season's been a bad one this year, but that's not what's making a lot of people sick.
The Centers for Disease Control says many illnesses are not flu, but a new strain of norovirus.
People used to call it the stomach flu, and that is absolutely not the correct way, because it has nothing to do with flu.
Dr. Jan Vignier with the CDC says the flu is like a bad head cold. The norovirus, well, that's a little further down.
Very, very typical for norovirus is a lot of vomiting. It's nasty.
Like the flu, norovirus spreads quickly and easily. The new strain responsible for hundreds of outbreaks in the U.S. after sweeping around the world. Dr. Vignier says to wash your hands with soap and water. Not all hand sanitizers will kill norovirus. Chris Honig, Fox News Radio.
The president of Kyrgyzstan approves a law with tougher sentences for bride kidnapping. It's up to 10 years now instead of 3. Snatching potential, sometimes teenage brides off the street, is illegal in that former Soviet Central Asian nation, but it's somewhat tolerated culturally. The short-term car rental business in America is growing fast.
There are now about 24 car-sharing services around the country. Researchers quoted by the New York Times say 800,000 people are members, a 44% increase in just 2 years. Most services let subscribers reserve a vehicle and pick it up at a neighborhood location, payment usually by the hour or the day. One service, operated by German luxury car maker Daimler, lets people pay by the minute, rent for just a one-way trip, and park for free on city streets. The big established car rental companies are getting into the business too. Avis is buying one of the first car-sharing companies, Zipcar, for $491 million. Steve Knight, Fox News Radio.
San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Michael Crabtree, accused of sexual assault at a hotel, is now off the hook. Prosecutors say no charges will be filed, at least at this time. The 49ers play the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl next Sunday. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News Radio.
A developer at a U.S.-based critical infrastructure company was caught outsourcing his work to China, meaning that he was paying someone else to do his job. Here's how Bob spent his day. Surfed the internet for a couple of hours, and then he watched cat videos. 11:30, he went to lunch. 1 o'clock, he went on eBay. 2 o'clock to 4:30, he was on Facebook. 5 o'clock, he went home. Cat videos? Really?
Saturdays noon to 3 and weekdays at 7:35 for your digital minute. It's Kim Commando on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
When you open a book, you open your mind to a world of adventure. Visit new places. Where am I? Encounter new friends.
Fate has brought you here, John Carter.
And discover the power of reading. Anything is possible. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter.
Only you can unlock this mystery.
A new world awaits. Read. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Weather is a service of News Talk 107.1 The Point. Contact Josh or Cody at 255-2548 for more information on making weather sponsorships part of your marketing plans.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, we have mostly sunny skies, high near 49 degrees. And then tonight, good chance of showers after midnight, a low around 30. On Sunday, very good chance of showers, cloudy skies, high near 48 degrees. I'm Dawn James, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
The Gun and Knife Show is coming to the West Plains Civic Center on February 9th and 10th, presented by TLR Shows. The show is open to the public. Admission is $5 for both days. Children under 12 are free with a paying adult. Concessions will also be available. Come in and buy, sell, or trade. The Gun and Knife Show at the West Plains Civic Center, February 9th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and February 10th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. For more information, call 417-778-6767.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right, we are back on America's Voice Now, and we have with us this morning in studio Joe and Denise Dixon from Morningland Dairy. They have, this is the couple that basically had their farm shut down. They had 36,420 pounds of cheese, raw milk cheese, confiscated yesterday and destroyed by the State Milk Board because they, quite frankly, were prosecuted and persecuted by the Missouri State Milk Board and the FDA, and they have been through the mill. This has basically bankrupted them on a personal level. They've lost their farm, they've lost their home, they have lost all of their herd. They've been put out of business. They lost some 6 or 7 employees, not to mention their own work and labor. They have 12 children, all of them their own. They have basically at this point been brought down to the stage where they had to give up their home, and they are living in what used to be their manufacturing facility, because that's the only thing left on the property that they own, which is mortgaged to an extent that's so far above its value that it basically even the bank doesn't want it back. And they have really been through the gamut on this. We wanted to give you folks an opportunity to hear live from them exactly what's transpiring in their lives and how all of this has affected them. And so we've asked them to come into the studio this morning and talk with us and kind of explain their story. So Denise, before we took the break, you guys told me a story about this FDA inspector who actually wanted to buy a 10-pound block of cheese. If you wouldn't mind kind of telling that story, because I think it's kind of telling.
Well, from the beginning, they intimidated us with their camouflage uniform when they first came in, and then they, of course, did their swabs for several days, and afterward, the next day, Ms. Ashmore came in, the leader of the FDA group, and said they were going to take a 10-pound block of cheese.
Actually, they said they were going to purchase a 10-pound block.
Yes, they were going to purchase from us a 10-pound block of cheese that they would be testing. And I said, I can't sell you a 10-pound block of cheese because I have an embargo sticker on my door. And she said, oh, that's okay. We talked with them, and it's okay. And I smelled a rat. I thought, if I sell you this block of cheese, you're going to put handcuffs on me because I violated the embargo.
Right. And actually, if they really wanted it for testing, they could have just taken it and said, we need this for sampling.
I believe they do have to purchase it. I don't believe they're allowed to take by the rules. I believe that's correct.
But anyway, I told her, I'm sorry, I can't sell it to you. And she said, like I said, that we have permission. I said, get that in writing for me. Okay, we'll do that. And I said, but I need to tell you that I can't sell you just any piece of cheese in there because it's not all for sale at this time. And she said, oh, yes, it is. Anything you put in the cooler is for sale. I said, I'm sorry, it's not. According to state regulation, it's 60 days before I can sell any cheese.
It has to age 60 days, essentially, from the day that you create it, just to, right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I said, also, before we sell any cheese, we do sensory testing We look at the cheese, we smell the cheese, we taste the cheese, and we decide whether the cheese is a sellable cheese. And I said, that is all we have for sale. She said, she objected to that heartily, and then she threatened me. She said that she would, she could have another federal agency brought in, I can't remember which one it was, to...
Another federal police agency.
Federal marshals?
Yes,
something
a marshal type.
Federal
thing,
marshals.
I believe it was.
Gee whiz, over
And
milk, right?
Standing there with my my knees knocking and my hands sweaty, and
Sure.
I said, well, you have to do what you have to do, but I have to do what I need to do also. And then she went to a superior. She called some superior to speak with them first, because I told her, whatever it is you have to do, I cannot sell you just any cheese in my cooler. She then came back a short while later and said, we won't be purchasing any cheese today.
Interesting. So basically they used a standard tactic of intimidation with the threat of some, punitive damage to come if you refuse to sell them the cheese, which was in direct violation of, at that point, a court order. It just goes to show you, and of course I could appreciate why you would feel like that was an entrapment step, right? Because if you sell them the cheese, then they could say in court documents, oh, and they sold us cheese in violation of the court order, and you'd be, you wouldn't even have an opportunity. And I know how lawyers work; they're not very good mouthpieces, and I'll bet money that a lawyer would not have come out and said yes, but they forced them to buy that, to sell that cheese. So I understand exactly where that comes from, and I have to tell you that's not unusual, that federal agencies will utilize a lot of intimidation. In fact, state agencies will too, because their goal is basically to rule by intimidation. They threaten you with their power, with their ability to punish you financially and or economically and or criminally.
And anytime I would question them as to what they were doing, would say, well, you don't really need that you have this somewhere else, or I don't think that's something that's, I can't remember exactly, but anytime like for instance, when I questioned her about buying the cheese, she's there with her pad of paper writing down,
right.
As if
every word you say.
Every word I'm saying, like
that we're being non-compliant.
It can be used against me.
Right. So you're not cooperative.
Not cooperative at all.
Amazing. You guys have really been through the mill here. Do you have an address where people who are interested could send you some funds to help to? I mean, there's no way that anyone can actually really remunerate you for what's gone on. But I know your plight financially is dire. Is there any place do you have an address where people could mail you some funds if they wanted to?
Our home address is 6248 County Road 2980, Mountain View, Missouri 65548.
Could you run that again?
6248 County Road 2980, Mountain View, Missouri 65548.
Okay. I'm going to read that a couple times during the rest of our discussion this morning. So, folks, if you would like to help support or at least make some sort of a donation, that would really be very, very well appreciated by these folks. I know that some folks yesterday were there to donate. There was one couple, actually, and God bless you for having stepped up to the plate to do that, and you're going to remain anonymous. But somebody slipped a check into Joe's hand that was for four digits. It was a very generous and well-needed support. And God bless you for having the courage of your convictions, and God bless you for having the wherewithal to be able to do that. Yes. So I know that they're very grateful and appreciative of that, and you're a wonderful couple, and thank you very much for doing that. If you would like to mail a donation, you can do that to 6248 County Road 2980, Mountain View, Missouri 65548. Now, also up on our Facebook page, up on our website, we have a link where you can go to a website called Pledgy, where these folks have there's an account there that's been set up for them where you can donate some money through a credit card or PayPal or some other format, so that if you don't have the ability to do it another way, or if you'd like to just, and listen folks, anything would help. If it's $10, $20, $50, $100, whatever you can swing, that would go a long way towards helping these guys get back on their feet. Now, I just want to talk a little bit, because we're talking about money. You're basically out of business, right?
Yes.
And they've made it clear that in order for you to go back into business, in the raw milk business, that they're going to put you or put you through a process and a gauntlet that they would not put an ordinary dairy farmer through. Is that correct?
They required
a cheese plant.
A cheese plant, and I apologize, my mistake.
They required our cheese plant to make over $100,000 worth of changes before we could make the first piece of cheese.
Okay, so it would take you another $100,000 just to get back in business,
right?
Making the changes that they would require that they don't require of another raw cheese plant. Is that correct?
They don't require of any cheese plant.
Any cheese plant.
We know of another cheese plant that was started up after these orders were put down against us. That one particular aspect that we were supposed to change, they were allowed to do exactly what we have at present.
Or what you had prior, right?
As approved by Don Falls
itself. Literally by our inspector.
So the goal here is really, we're going to make these regulations so onerous on you that there's just no way that you could possibly get back into business.
Yeah. My wife actually got the list. She went through it. She called people up who provided these materials to complete that list of things that the court required us to do. And in doing so, came up with a total of about $104,000. Don Falls countered it, saying, well, it should only be about $16,000 because labor is just labor.
Whose labor is free?
Yeah, that was one of his statements. Apparently to the state, the labor is free because they have the people they can get their money from us, to do these things to the people that they get the tax money from.
Right.
I even brought up
16,000 wasn't correct.
No,
either.
It wasn't correct at
Way
all.
off.
As well.
So these were changes that you had to. This was like testing equipment, or I mean, what was it that they were trying to force you to?
Our cheese vat is an older cheese vat. The top of it is still metal. It's not stainless steel. We had to put in a stainless steel one, even though they could find nothing wrong with the metal one.
Right.
It was clean as a pin. They could find nothing there they could complain about. But by their ruling, since we questioned their authority, they came back as hard as they could, saying, now you got to do this, this, and this, which they've never done to any other cheese plant in Missouri. And in doing so, then we'd have to age the cheese as by state and federal regulations, 60 days just to sell the cheese. Then we'd have to test each batch, which we have no problem doing if we figured we could get an honest test. But after the testing results of where we sent off for our private test, and that test coming up and then the date code being changed with a call from Don Falls, the test itself, when we questioned what weekly positive was, it was changed to 99% probable weekly positive, and by a phone call, and then those tests were sworn under oath in the courts that those were the state's tests.
Right. Well, so basically what it comes down to is that they would make it so difficult for you to be back in business that first of all there'd be $100,000 worth of upgrades that you would have to make to your facility in order to get started.
After we were already bankrupted.
After you're bankrupted, and frankly, at this point, you don't have any cows to milk.
No.
Right.
That would mean you'd have to go out and buy a herd of cows in order to just, continue the process. So it doesn't just stop at the upgrades to the facility. I don't know what 100 cows cost, but I know it ain't cheap. So, and then of course you'd have to have the employees available to milk the cows twice a day, and then process all of that into cheese. And then in addition to that, you'd have no income for at least 60 days while you waited for the first batch just to age, right?
Yes,
exactly.
So, I mean, it's a kind of a lose-lose-lose situation. They basically put you in a position where you're not going to be able to ever do this again.
No.
What are your plans? I mean, what are you folks intending to do at this point? What do you think that you're going to do to make a living?
Well, you
have 12 kids.
Yeah. Well, there's still 2 left at home. The rest of them are out on their own now. We intend to try to make the cheese house into our home. So we got to tear everything out of there and replace it with a home setup, a kitchen, a bathroom, so forth and so on, bedrooms, living room. And as we're doing that, I'll still be working on the road for a while yet, and then we intend to try to get back. I'll try to pick up work locally in one form or another. We're also looking for, if we can, a couple small businesses to try to purchase to get back into things in the area, but it will not under this current governmental structure, which we keep saying is our government. It has been corrupted to the point I think that term should be changed to the government.
The government. It is no longer our government. You're absolutely right.
If it were our government, when we went to court, the Attorney General's office would have been trying to find the truth, not trying to back up the milk board at all cost.
Right.
And the milk
also,
board,
they would have been doing everything they could to help us get back into business.
Sure.
Get back into production.
Sure.
A positive thing.
Yeah, because we asked them, if we did have a problem, show us where it is, and we will improve that.
Right.
We will change that.
We'll fix what's wrong. Just tell us what it is.
That is correct. Any cheese that is bad, we will destroy.
Right.
Not a problem.
Let me ask you a question. Did they at any point bar you from being able to do your own tests on this embargoed cheese while this entire court process was going on?
They said we could do testing.
All we wanted.
But all the testing we wanted, we could do.
But it didn't make any difference because no matter what the results were, it was all going to be unacceptable to their standards.
That is correct.
So you could go out there and spend $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 testing it all.
We'd actually found out some labs that would do the testing for up to $10,000 to get down to the specific type of listeria, if there was any there.
Right.
But when the state said it wouldn't make any difference, and the judge ruled the way he ruled.
How much more good money can you throw after bad?
That is correct. So that's where we found out it was a destruction system.
Right.
It's not
what
a
also
building
shocked
system.
us, though, too, was that there was one lab in Springfield that we were going to try to test with, and they actually told us that as long as we were in this lawsuit, they wouldn't test our...
They wouldn't touch it.
Oh, really?
Well, they're certified by the state. They don't want to get in trouble.
I see. Right. So, I have to tell you, after my own experience, and I was a federally licensed firearms dealer at one point in my life, and I've also held other licenses. I was a certified, I had a Series 7, which enables you to sell securities and stocks and bonds and everything else, right? I was also a licensed real estate broker at one point. I came to the conclusion that I would never do anything else in my life for a profession where I was licensed. And I'll tell you the simple reason why. What they give you, they can take away from you. And, my life was destroyed and my family's life was destroyed as a result of what they did to me. And I can tell you that, this station is licensed, but I'm not licensed, and of course, as long as I don't do anything that would violate their license, I'm at least currently free to express my own opinions.
Well,
and they don't belong to the station. They're my opinions. They don't reflect on the station and all of the normal disclaimers that go with that. But I will never work in another industry where I have to have a license because they can just, put you out. Go ahead.
I have a question. Why in the United States of America do we have to have a license to exist?
Well,
why do we have to have a license to provide something for ourselves to eat and to be able to trade with other people? Why is it in the country that our forefathers fought and died for that we've gotten to this point, we've gotten so complacent that we've let these bureaucracies take over to the point where we have to have a license just to buy, sell, and trade?
Well, there's a simple word that expresses all of that wrapped up into one word: control. Control.
But we have gotten lazy and permitted them to take that from us.
You're preaching to the choir on that one, brother, because I sit here and tell people all the time, we live in the United States of apathy. We no longer live in the United States of America. And furthermore, we are going to go down in history as the stupidest generation. Our parents were known as the greatest generation, those who fought World War II and World War I and Korea. We're going to go down in history as the stupidest generation because we allowed our republic to evaporate right before our eyes, and we never did a single thing to stop the slide.
Well,
that's scary, but it's true.
We are attempting to stand to try to help stop that slide. We are questioning the authorities to try to help stop that slide. We're asking each and every one of you to do the same. Each and every one of you to contact other people and explain to them it's not just for our cheese plant or our dairy. That's just a small little piece of the puzzle. But it's for the freedom of our children, our grandchildren, and the responsibility of ourselves to be self-governing. Not governed by bureaucracy to the point to where we're where we are governed out of existence.
Sure. Well, and worse yet, it's bureaucracy that is unaccountable to anyone. These are unelected bureaucrats, right? They're not elected. They're appointed, or they get their job through a normal resume process. But once they have that job, they're not accountable to even the courts or the legislature.
They're removed from reality, too.
They absolutely are. I mean, and honestly, they have a vested interest in persecuting businesses like yours. The Milk Board is a good example, because they cannot justify their existence unless they actually find problems or make problems.
But see, in our case, they haven't found a problem. No sicknesses, no illnesses. No
right, so they manufacture one.
Yes.
And the Attorney General's office upheld them in that manufacturing process.
Because the preference and the deference always goes to the government employee. It always goes to the guy who works for government, whether that on the witness stand, whether that is a Milk Board employee, or whether that is a guy who works for the EPA, or whether it's the sheriff who gave you the speeding ticket, or whether it's the police officer who said, I saw him do this. The deference, if it's a he said, she said, the deference always goes to the agency or the individual. And even when it's not a he said, she said, their rules always take or trump the rights of the individual.
Well, we saw their rules in place yesterday.
Yes, we did.
We saw them there yesterday with no hazmat suits for something they said was so dangerous you couldn't take it and pasteurize it into dog food. It had to go to a landfill for other things to eat to get into, quote, the water supply.
Right.
We saw them.
And by the way, it's not going to get into the water supply being buried in a landfill?
That's what I'm saying, to get into the water supply.
I mean, honestly, if this stuff is laying out there in an open field.
And it's that dangerous.
And it's that dangerous that it requires that it's not fit for man nor beast, as the old phrase goes, right? Then what about all the beasties who are going to be feeding on this, from birds and rabbits and deer? And I mean, that cheese, because it's in the fermentation process, and as it breaks down and starts to rot, it's going to have an odor that will
draw the animals in.
Run for miles, right? And it's going to draw those animals in. They're going to then go in there and eat it. And then they are either going to, and by that point, it will actually be rotten and full of bacteria that will kill them. So if this hasn't been completely covered in dirt, and I don't mean like with a thin layer, I mean if this hasn't been buried completely, then it's creating another hazard. And if it has been buried completely, that means as it breaks down, that is, whatever is in that cheese is going to leach into the soil, leach into the water supply, and we're going to have another problem.
Actually, I don't believe we are going to have a problem, because naturally this substance isn't deadly like they're saying.
Yeah, but if it's laying out there in the sun and it's rotting, it will, right?
Even then, it'll just decompose. It's not.
Yes.
It's like putting compost on your garden.
Sure.
It's just going to break down.
Right.
It is not any type of danger in any way.
But if it's as
dangerous as they said it is, then of course it is.
Yes.
Sure.
But here's the agency coming in with no hazmat suits saying this product is so dangerous.
Right. Those guys were there yesterday in just plain Jane blue jeans and shirts and jackets. They had no hazmat. They had work gloves on. They didn't have plastic protective
Don
gloves.
Falls with no gloves.
Don Falls had no gloves.
They had no hazmat suits. They had no respirators. They had no rebreathers. They had nothing on them that would indicate that they believed that this was a product that was hazardous to their health.
The Sheriff's Department, the State Patrol, the Milk Board even watched as people picked pieces of cheese up out of the dumpster and looked at them. These are open packages of cheese, some of them, because we hadn't been able to touch the cooler in 2.5 years.
Sure.
We obeyed the judge's orders, which we wonder now if we really should have, because here we are at this point in time, and they're doing what they're doing with no hazmats, no nothing, and watching people and a child play in the dumpster, with all of them standing there watching for something that is so dangerous.
Yeah.
How insane is this?
Well, there was a child there yesterday who was actually playing in and around that dumpster with that cheese there. And so if it was as dangerous as they said it was, that should have told us everything that we needed to know, and them everything they needed to know to prohibit that kind of activity. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, this is the bottom of the hour. We've got a quick news blast, and then we've got a caller on the line. And we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. And we are meeting this morning with Joe and Denise Dixon from Morningland Dairy. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Survivors of gun violence among those this morning gathering in the nation's capital.
Heeding the president's call for grassroots action for gun control measures, supporters plan what they're calling a silent march in Washington, D.C. today. It will start near the Capitol and continue to the Washington Monument. Among the marchers, some celebrities, including actress Kathleen Turner. They're trying to build pressure on Congress to pass tougher gun laws.
Fox Radio's Mike Makowitz in Washington.
Gun rights supporters, though, say the measures so far would not save lives but would violate constitutional rights.
And it's official. J.J. Abrams will direct the next Star Wars film. The news on the Emmy-winning creator of TV's Lost and the 2009 Star Trek film coming from Lucasfilm, which was acquired by the Walt Disney Company last month. Fox News, we report, you decide.
We believe the better the ingredients, the better the taste to bring to you the greatest tasting pastries possible. At Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, we use organic, locally sourced, and natural ingredients of the highest quality. Every item is handcrafted and baked fresh for you each and every day. Visit Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, number 2 Evans Arcade on the Courthouse Square in downtown West Plains, or call 255-2253, and you'll be glad you did.
Here we go with round 2 of Hope and Change. Looking forward looks bumpy and rocky. Nobody's stimulated by high unemployment and tax increases. Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can help you be ready to face the challenges of the next 4 years. We have long-term food storage, ammunition, informational books and DVDs, water purifiers, and a whole lot more. Come see us at 3225 Highway 62 East, Suite number 3, just a half mile past Walmart in Mountain Home, or call us at 492-4030. That's Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
Obama is now uniting more and more of us with his latest power grab and his propaganda. He's trying to provoke us, and he has. So I just want to say that he picked this battle, not with the Republicans, not with Congress, but with us, the people. Second Amendment is not about Congress, and it's not about the Republicans. It's about individual liberty vis-a-vis the federal government.
Mark Levin is on the radio.
Weeknights from 5 till 8, Mark Levin on the Ozark's Best News Talk 107.1.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day. If you stack their desks one atop the other, it's a pile more than 17,000 feet high. That's 12 Empire State Buildings. But what's truly scary is that another stack is going up tomorrow. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, we have mostly sunny skies, high near 49 degrees. And then tonight, good chance of showers after midnight, a low around 30 on Sunday. Very good chance of showers, cloudy skies, high near 48 degrees. I'm Dawn James, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Today is Saturday, salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, bubble on Thursday, water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday, let's move Mondays, progress next Sunday.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov. A message from USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Folks, we are back, and you are listening to America's Voice Now. We are joined this morning by Joe and Denise Dixon. They are the owners of Morningland Dairy, which has recently been eviscerated, basically, by a group, a whole series. Exterminated, I think is even a better word. Yeah, thanks, Joe. By a series of really unaccountable agencies based on the premise that they manufactured this raw milk cheese, and we all know, because there's a whole series of dairies that are being persecuted, I should say, around the nation for this type of thing. So I think Bob Parker has joined us on the phone. Good morning, Bob. You were there yesterday too, were you not?
I sure was, Mike. Good to be with you this morning, and good morning to Joe and Denise, and my heart goes out to you guys. And with what's happened to your lives, as you know, I went to your court hearings in West Plains and have followed your case, and our organization, the Property Rights Coalition, has done everything we can. Denise, Doreen Haas has done a tremendous amount of work exposing what's happened in your situation. Yeah, she's just done a fantastic job. And, I've been in production agriculture most of my life, dairied for years, and I just understand so well the helplessness that you feel with these agencies. And I just share your frustration with our elected officials. They just refuse to get involved and do anything with these agencies that are really just ripping the heart out of rural America. I mean, and we're out here with really no cover. The shields are down on rural America, our jobs, our livelihoods, our farmers. These agencies, one after another, are able to do just about anything they want with no accountability. The courts are set up to give them cover, and really, if we don't start putting people into office and people joining together and standing up against this absolute outrage that's taken place in so many different cases like yours, what are we going to do?
It's up to the Sheriff's Department also to become constitutional again. And I think the two people that were there yesterday, two that I talked to from the Sheriff's Department, we talked for quite some time, and they started saying, well, we understand more now what's going on. Right. And I asked everybody there to be very peaceable, very peaceful.
Right, you
and everything, and they said they appreciated that very much because they understood we're just wanting our rights to choose, our freedoms that we are supposed to have under God.
That God and nature have given us.
That is correct.
Just by virtue of the fact that we are able to fog a mirror.
Not state given civil rights or federally given civil rights.
Well, and the real outrage to me, Joe, is you never had a jury trial. I mean, you had these a judge paid by the state to determine your case, to support the interests of the state. Yes. And that's exactly what our founders wanted to get away from. They wanted us to have a jury of our peers, and you were denied that.
Bob, you brought up a good point, and I just want to make a note here, Joe, and I don't mean to cut you off, but this is an important one. Under administrative rulings, you are not entitled to a jury trial.
So the question I have is, Mike, where does that come from?
That comes from the American Procedures Act, the APA, which is the governing document, which is about 4 inches thick, behind the administrative procedures that these agencies unaccountably set up. And as a result, one of the aspects of it is that when you are persecuted/prosecuted by these agencies, you do not have the right to a jury trial that you would have if you were being, sued civilly and or sued or charged criminally.
So in other words, what they've done, they've
eviscerated the jury system, which is the exact definition of Americans protecting other Americans from government overreach.
Well, in other words, they brought in tyranny again.
Hey, listen, that word should be hanging over this entire conversation like the sword of Damocles.
and that's exactly my point. I mean, they passed laws that are unconstitutional. Our founders never envisioned that there would be this alphabet soup of agencies out there that could basically do anything that they want, destroy people's lives
with impunity.
With impunity and have no accountability to the people. And, that should be changed. To have the government come in and do what they did to Joe and Denise without any opportunity to be heard by a jury of our peers is absolutely wrong and needs to be changed.
They traded judges 2 working days before court.
Yeah.
They brought in another witness without us being able to even do a deposition 2 to 3 days before court.
Sure. So the entire process, by saying, well, we took it to court and we won, is a sham because they set it up so that you can't possibly win as a defendant. right?
That is correct.
And you are called a defendant in this prosecution. I mean, I'm looking right here, and it says defendant. Now, and the judge refers to you as a defendant a number of times. And I have to say, if you're a defendant, then according to our Constitution, you're entitled to a jury to actually hear that. Not just a judge who can make a decision and a biased decision from a bench where he has, no ability, or where you have no ability to actually plead your case to a group of your peers who could say, you know what, we think you guys are being a little heavy-handed on these folks, and we're going to tell you right now they're not guilty, back off. They've got a right to test their cheese, toss out what's bad, keep what's good, and move on.
And that's all we ask for.
Right? And that's all everybody's asked for.
Yes.
And of course, by stripping you of your right to a jury trial, and by utilizing a system which is set up to win for them every time, no matter what the circumstances are.
Where is it that the Attorney General's office, doesn't the Attorney General have to swear an oath to obey the Constitution?
Yes,
well, they all swore an oath. I mean, all the officers standing there yesterday, you could read them right out of the Constitution where it says we get a jury trial, right in the Constitution, but yet they would stand there. It wouldn't change anything. They would stand there with their guns and continue to allow this unconstitutional action to take place.
Well,
it's just...
I believe the whole telling picture was the end of what happened there. My wife and I are not going to die. We are not going to disappear. We're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to speak out. Okay? The whole telling picture was the milk board there in bare hands and just regular gloves, regular work clothes, putting it into a dumpster to go to a landfill, letting people, with them watching, and the State Patrol watching, and the Sheriff's Department watching, play with the cheese that was in the dumpster, and a child standing there playing with the cheese in the dumpster with open packages. That's the true telling story of a conspiracy.
Right. If this was really as hazardous a material as they say it was, then they should have been protected themselves and protecting the public from whatever contamination they could get from being in contact with it. And that's a great point.
Well, yesterday was a very sad day in Missouri.
Yes, it was.
What happened on their farm.
And there's another dairy thereafter, by the way. Does anybody know the name of that dairy? No. There's another dairy thereafter for the same exact thing. They're a raw milk dairy, and they're out there hammering them into dust right now as well. And so what we need is our legislators. We need Mike Cunningham and Robert Ross and Sean Rhodes and guys like Bob Parker to be able to, get a hold of these agencies and rein them in, either by threatening to restrict their power and or making legislative changes immediately now so that these folks have some protection against, a government on the edge of tyranny.
One thing we found out was the FDA, which the State Milk Board says now they obey all rules and regulations of the FDA. The FDA states they have a zero tolerance for 4 pathogens. One of them is Listeria, E. coli. What's the other 2? Do you know?
Salmonella.
I'm
not sure.
But anyway, there's no such thing as zero. Don Falls told us himself time after time after time, if we look hard enough, we'll find what we're looking for anywhere.
Right. And that's the problem.
There's no such thing as a zero tolerance.
It's like the old adage that you can indict a ham sandwich because the prosecutor is the only one who gets to talk to the grand jury. So he can make you look as bad as he wants, and you don't even have a chance to say, wait a minute, that's not true. So, the grand jury always comes back and says, yep, indict him. Because they only hear one side of the story. And, yourself, you could make a story look terrible if you just, put the right bias on it. We're going to take a break in just a minute. And, Bob, I want to thank you for visiting yesterday and putting your support behind these folks. That speaks well, by the way, folks, for Bob Parker in this upcoming, House race that's out there right now. You have an opportunity to make some phone calls to the chairman and the vice chairman of your local district committee that's going to be voting for our new representative to replace Joanne Emerson. And I would encourage you to make a call to your individuals and put a push on to make sure that they're going to vote for Parker.
Mike, I'd just like to quickly say I don't make a lot of promises other than upholding the Constitution and those kinds of things. But if I'm elected to that position, I'll do everything I can to rectify this situation.
I hear you there, and that's the kind of thing that we need and expect from a guy or a girl who's going to go to Washington to fight on our behalf, not to sit there and toe the party line, Yes. Hey, Bob, thanks so much. I appreciate you, bud.
Thanks so much, guys.
God bless you. Have a great day. Folks, I want to give out a phone number for Joe and Denise because they're in the process now of trying to pull their lives back together. They're in the process of trying to obtain this cleaning business, which basically they're going to have to, be indentured for, if you will. But they're they're working to obtain this cleaning business, which is commercial, industrial, and residential. So it'll be office cleaning, house cleaning, residential, industrial, commercial, all of the above. And if you have a business, if you have a home, if you need some good, reliable, God-fearing people who you know that you could trust and have integrity to come into your place of business or into your home to do some work for you, then I would encourage you to give them a call. The phone number for you to call is 417-349-0167. That's 417-349-0167. Also, if you are willing and or capable of making a donation to them, to the Dixons, to kind of help them get back on their feet, their address is 6248 CR, that's County Road, 2980 in Mountain View, Missouri. And the zip code there is 65548. I want to encourage all of you to do whatever you can to, one of the things that we talk about here is to educate, inform, to motivate, and to activate. Because that's what it's going to take for us to restore our republic. And I hear people say over and over and over again, I don't know what I can do. I'm just one person. Well, here's an opportunity for you to get activated to do something right now that can help, even in a small way, help these folks get back on their feet. And that's part of the restoration of our republic. You can't just say, I'm only going to fix what's, tomorrow's things. We've got problems right now today that need help. And these guys are definitely worthy of your assistance, whether that be financial, whether that be support in a legislative environment where you're making phone calls on their behalf, whether that be you have a home or a business that you could use their services and their cleaning services, then I encourage you to help them and participate. Again, the phone number is 417-349-0167. And if you have a capability to send them some funds, I'm sure they'd be very grateful. You can mail it to Morningland Dairy or Joe and Denise, and you can mail it to them. Dixon is their last name, Dixon. You can mail that to them at 6248 County Road, 2980 in Mountain View, Missouri, and the zip code again is 65548. I want to thank both of you guys for taking the time to come down here and join us this morning. And let me just give you my apology on behalf of our state and our nation for the punishment that they've put you folks to. I feel for you, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I've been in your shoes, and these nightmares don't end because the wounds last forever. And you folks are, you're going to have to restart your lives, basically. And, I'm looking at the two of you. We're all about the same age. We're getting a little long in the tooth to keep reinventing ourselves,
But we do not quit and we do not give up.
Well, and God, listen, God does, amazing things for amazing people, right? And so you guys have a good, strong faith. You have a good, hard work ethic, and you've got integrity, you've got honor, and I applaud you for standing up. And I know that when you're in that situation, people say, oh, how do you stand strong? Well, you don't have a choice because you got to wake up in the morning, right? And you got to go through every day. But, when you're going through that kind of problem in our lives, and, you guys have really shown a great, you smile, you're happy people, you've got a great sense of humor. Denise, you've got a wonderful smile. You remind me of my mom a little bit. You're a very gentle person, but, you're a wonderful human being, and God bless you. I appreciate both of you folks for coming down here.
Thank you.
So, I'm just gonna wrap the show. We've got about 5 minutes left. And then we'll talk a little bit further. We need you guys to go out there and help support these folks. Right now is your chance to make a difference, and make a difference immediately in someone else's life. And this is where you have an opportunity to step up and say, you know what, I did the right thing. You can do it anonymously. You can do it, with your name tied to it. We don't really care how you do it, as long as you do it. You can mail them some funds if you have it at 6248 County Road, 2980. in Mountain View, Missouri, 65548. And you can address that to Joe and Denise Dixon. That's Dixon. You can also mail it to Morningland Dairy if you'd like. Their phone number, if you have an opportunity to hire them to do some work for you in this cleaning industry, is 417-349-0167. Now, Joe and Denise have both made it clear that if you are also a couple that or an individual that has a business and you could use some help in trying to maybe migrate that business into a new owner, they'd be willing to talk to you. They don't have a lot of resources. They can't buy a business.
So we have a hard work ethic.
But boy, do they have a hard work ethic. I mean, nobody works harder than a dairy farmer. You're up at 3 o'clock in the morning and, you guys work hard. And so they got a great work ethic and they have integrity and honor and a good heart. And so if you are a business owner and you are trying to phase out, I would encourage you to maybe contact them again at 417-349-0167. We've got another phone call here. We're going to take that real quick. Go ahead, caller. You've only got a moment or two.
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to let you know that if somebody goes to get a mortgage or something on the house, usually in the contract that they give up their right for trial by jury. So if they read the fine print, they could see that in there.
Sure. Well, and I get what you're saying. There's usually an arbitration clause or something in there that says you don't have a right to have a jury hear your case. But in this case, it's not even something that they signed away. This is something that was stolen from them, and there's a vast difference there.
Sure.
When a milk board says we've got an administrative rule, and the Administrative Procedures Act says that you're not entitled to a jury trial, even though you're being prosecuted as if you were a criminal or as if you were a civil criminal, you don't have a right to a jury trial under the administrative procedures process, whereas you do for anything else. If I were to sue, you for stealing my bicycle, you would have a right to have a jury hear that case. If the police were to prosecute you for a crime of bank robbery or burglary, you would have a right for a jury to hear that case and make a determination with 12 peers whether or not you're actually guilty.
Sure.
And the case in this instance, because it's a procedural act, you don't have that right to a jury, and that's something completely different. So, listen, I want to thank you for that call. Thanks very much. I appreciate your input.
God bless.
All right, have a great day. Folks, we're going to wrap our show in just a moment. Any parting thoughts with you folks that you'd like to?
We ask that everybody get involved, not just with us, because ours is just one point.
Sure.
It's across the whole nation. We're going to lose our nation if we don't. We're going to lose it for our children and our grandchildren. So it's time for us to get the brass, as Mike would say, to start standing up and saying, hold it.
Our Father tells us to take dominion
and authority.
And not be, as Mike said, stupid.
Yeah.
Or be afraid.
And I think that's part of it. We're all cowered into fear because our government has shown us exactly how heavy their hand can be. Folks who stand up and say, wait a minute, usually get slapped pretty hard. And that's
I'm willing to be slapped, though.
Well, you've been slapped.
Well, I'm willing to be slapped more if that's what it takes, because I'm willing to fight for our future.
Well, listen.
I'm asking the rest of you to do the same.
Sure. Folks, you know who your leaders are, because they're the people who are going to stand up and in the face of adversity and in the face of persecution, they're the ones who stand up and say, not on my watch. And that's the mark of leadership, is doing what's right all the time, whether someone's watching or not, and for the right reasons, not just because it's a personal, you get some personal benefit out of it. If you look at what our founding fathers did, those are the guys who sat there, and they were wealthy men. I mean, our founders were landowners. They had money, they had wealth, and many of them were slave owners. Many of them had large plantations and farms. Let me tell you something. Those men put everything on the line. And you know what? They did it not for personal self-aggrandizement or for their ego or for their pocketbook. They knew that by putting their name on that piece of paper for that Declaration of Independence, they were signing for all intents and purposes their own destruction warrant. And, the history of what happened to most of those men is just tragic. I mean, their families were killed, their farms were burned, they were moved out of their homes, they died in bankruptcy, a lot of them. You know what, people? Is life so sweet that we are willing to give up and live as slaves rather than speak out? Personally, I go under the motto of live free or die. And I don't think that, I don't think those are empty words. If you say them as empty words, then you really need to check and do a reality check on yourself. But, here's a perfect example of a couple who stood up and did the right thing, and despite doing the right thing over and over and over and over again, were persecuted, prosecuted, and abused by a system that absolutely doesn't serve us as a nation. I mean, this process that they went through didn't really protect anyone. All it did was advance the position of some guy who can punch his report card and say, looky what I did.
And the government officials showed that. The state milk board showed that the way they came into our plant. There's plenty of video out there. It's going to be on the internet. If you would, please go to it and look at it and then pray about it and ask what this really is and what this really means.
Sure.
They showed their true colors. They showed really what they meant, with the sheriff's department standing there, the state patrol standing there, all of them watching as people pick the cheese up. Come on, folks. If this was really bad, wouldn't they protect you from it?
Sure. And during this entire process, they could have protected the public adequately by saying to you, you've got to test everything that goes out the door, and that's no good, we destroy. That is good, you get to sell. That would have been ample protection. But this wasn't protection. This was prosecution and persecution.
Because
and that's the simple truth.
Because we asked questions.
Yeah, because you ask questions and you question their authority.
Yes.
And there is one thing, if I've seen in unaccountable, unelected bureaucrats, it's God forbid you ever question their authority, boy. They come back snarling like rabid dogs. Because even they, in their own heart and mind, know that their self-esteem is based exclusively on the fact that they've been given or delegated power they haven't earned. Right?
Is that not what you saw on one man's face there a lot of the time?
Yeah.
That type of a snarl?
Yep. He was nervous and scared, too. I mean, 70 people was a little intimidating, I think.
Well, there was enough
it's a good thing it wasn't hunting season, because I think he probably wouldn't have wanted to come that week.
There was enough state patrol there and police deputies.
Sure, there were. But my point is, he was nervous. I mean, when he handed me, and I asked him specifically if I could see the order, the declaration order that allowed him to destroy the cheese, he handed it to me, and he had just gotten out of a warm truck. And I had been standing out in the cold for 2.5 hours, and his hand was shaking worse than mine, and I know he wasn't cold. So the overall issue here, folks, is that these guys, they knew they were doing wrong even while they were doing it, and they didn't care, and they were willing to sacrifice this family for no purpose other than to
control.
Continue a level of control. And, it's like that old adage of H.L. Mencken, that given empirical proof that you're wrong, most people will go about trying to find documentation to prove they're right, and justify their position, even though they have adequate and substantial proof that they're wrong. And this is a perfect example of that. So, listen, I want to thank both of you for taking the time to join us this morning.
Thank you.
God bless you guys, and keep up the fight. So, and we'll try to do whatever we can to support you, folks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Folks, we're going to wrap our show for the day. It is just short of the 9 o'clock hour. It's 8:58. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You're going to be able to find this video up on YouTube, and you can find it by going to youtube.com/America's Voice Now. You can also find it by going over to Facebook and go to our page there at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Then you can also find us on the web at www.americasvoicenow.org. We try to make it really simple and easy for you guys to find us. Please make sure that you support our sponsors as well. The battery station at 303 Washington Avenue, 257-7799, batterystation.com. Bill Stone over at Stone Construction at 293-0116. Remodel, custom, new, light commercial work, he does it all. Chantilly's Artisan Bakery at number 2 Evans Arcade, 255-2253. And Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance, that's OzarkMTNSelfreliance.com, 870-492-4030 on 3225 Highway 62, a half mile east of Walmart and Mountain Home. Folks, this is the end of our show for the day. We'll see you bright and early on Monday morning at 8 a.m., and we hope that you will join us then. Have a wonderful day. This is Mike Evans. I'll see you on Monday.
Let's get to the point.
Well, let me get to the point.
FM News Talk for the Ozarks is FM 107.1, The Point, KBMV.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. President Obama says Congress should quickly confirm his nominees for top 2 economic spots: Mary Jo White to lead the Securities and Exchange Commission, Richard Cordray to continue as director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. He's on the job now in a recess appointment.
Richard's appointment runs out at the end of the year, and in order for him to stay on the job, the Senate needs to finally give him the vote he deserves.
The president in his weekly message, South Dakota Senator John Thune for the Republicans.
Washington is addicted to spending your money. Over the past 4 years,